Alright, everyone. Welcome to the Eerie Hours. I'm your host, Gene Skinner, and join me for this special Eerie Hours edition on a Sunday is Captain Weeb. Say hello to the chat, Weeb.
Hi, I'm already spooked.
Yeah, I know. That was a very spooky
That was
synth.
very spooky.
Very spooky dungeon set from the band Diplodocus, Tales of the Ancient Past of the EP. The song itself is called Dinosaur, in case anyone was curious about that.
Oh.
Before we get into anything else tonight, though, I'm going to open my beer I have over here on the side. Because it is very fitting for a spooky night. It is the Nosferatu Imperial Red IPA by Great Lakes
you're
Brewing.
such a hipster.
It smells good. And pour.
Oh, yes, it has a very fruity aroma.
It's very red because it's an Imperial Red IPA. And that will be reminding you of blood. Blood from the dinosaurs that roam the earth.
You know, there was a very easy Jew joke there, and I'm the bigger man and won't take it.
That's right, for once. And you're big two ways, both tall and wide.
What an asshole.
I am, I know. Anyway, let's get into the first video we have for tonight. You ready to be spooked? This is from a channel called Strange
spooked.
But True.
Oh.
By Steve White. He talks about dinosaurs. Here we go. Oh, it paused. Thanks. There we go. And in case you didn't know, we were to see under me is Hachisaku-sama, the very tall lady from Japanese mythology. She is the icon for the Eerie Hours.
The other side.
I do like big lady.
I'm Steve White.
She had big booba.
Strange creatures have been featured on lots and lots of programs, including ours, for a long, long time. Cryptids, or animals with questionable origin or lack of hard scientific evidence to support their existence, have been debated for many years. And yet, sightings of these strange creatures still appear all over the globe.
Wait, so if I turn it up on my end,
creatures
on
that
here,
beached
won't fuck with
themselves
yours?
just last year, in fact. One in Indonesia, and one
What
pulled
the
onto
fuck
a
is
Texas
that?
beach by Hurricane Harvey,
Oh, that thing?
later identified as a
that's like
demon
a
fish,
looks like
have shown
Ralph.
that lots of strange-looking creatures...
That is actually a thinky dead orca, possibly. It's just decomposed really badly.
Creatures lurk in the depths. And take the rediscovery of the coelacanth in
the coelacanth, that's an
1938.
ancient animal.
Long thought extinct since the Cretaceous period, more than 140 million years ago.
But it's still alive today.
The coelacanth was caught off the coast of South Africa in December 1938.
And they've been seen a lot more since. They're just
captured over the next several decades,
down deep in the oceans.
Proving this prehistoric dinosaur of a fish found a way to survive into the 20th century.
Yes, it did.
So does that mean other dinosaur-like creatures survive?
Oh shit, look at that.
And yes, crocodiles and alligators.
Isn't that the,
and some birds and fish can all trace roots back to dinosaur ancestry.
Rex or some shit from Jurassic Park?
I don't believe... Oh, you mean the Indominus Rex thing or whatever?
Yeah, the Indominus Hulk.
I don't believe that is. I think it's supposed to be a representation of maybe the one we're looking at tonight, the Kasai Rex. Possibly. It's said to be really, really big and really, like, red-looking as a dinosaur. This one seems very scaly.
Let me guess, it's from Africa, like most of these dinosaurs.
Yes, it is from Africa. Correct. I don't know a specific region yet. I think it's either Tanzania or Mozambique, but we will see when we get there.
That makes sense.
But what we are talking about today...
I mean, Africa is a vast continent, and there's probably still a lot of shit that we haven't even explored yet.
True.
These stories were collected
very unexplored
from
for what it is.
Cryptozoology News.
Thanks, cryptozoologynews.com.
The Lake Norman Monster.
Truth.
For more than 40 years, the people living and recreating on Lake Norman in Morrisville, North Carolina, have claimed to have
Lake
seen
Norman
a
doesn't
strange
sound
creature
African at
living in
all,
the
unless it
depths of
is.
their
I'm just
waters.
ignorant.
Lake Norman has been a popular place for boaters, swimmers, and sun
curious,
worshippers for many years. But some of those enjoying themselves on the water say they have seen an unknown creature appearing occasionally on the surface.
Let's see. Lake Norman.
Ted Hill told Cryptozoology News that he was on the lake one afternoon in search of a beach when he spotted a creature breach the surface,
North Carolina,
grab a duck, and carry it under. He claimed the sighting lasted about 2 minutes as the creature continued to breach. He described the creature as looking like the pictures of the famed Loch Ness Monster.
So a plesiosaur,
Only
which
smaller,
isn't a dinosaur, by the way.
About 12 feet long, he said. A
They're called, a
fisherman
lot of stuff
reported
is
a
called
similar
saurs that are
sighting
not
the following
dinosaurs
day,
at all. Plesiosaurs.
saying he was fishing from a boat and
Yeah.
noticed a 10-foot dinosaur.
Don't want to ruin the dinosaur
circle
brand.
his boat
No.
and then dive back down.
A lot of scientists in the 19th and 18th century like, oh yeah, it looks like it's a giant reptile or something, even though most dinosaurs
the people who live and
really
enjoy the lake don't seem to be
either.
scared
It's
by
really
a potential
strange.
lake monster. Instead,
Life is
they
fun.
have embraced this creature over
Life
the
is
years,
scary.
creating a website dedicated to its sightings and giving him the nickname Normie. A report from the late
Normie, that's
90s
very
tells of a
adorable for a
sighting by
creature
some
that
high
looks
school
terrifying.
kids diving into the lake from the Duke Power Trestle near the dam.
Yeah,
We had been there for
he's just
about
he's
2
just a cool
hours and
bloke.
making a lot of noise. I went to dive in and decided to make a huge splash. When I arose to the surface, everyone was like, "Get out of the water!" yelling and screaming that something was after me. I shrugged it off, and then after realizing that the water 20 feet behind me was rippling, I decided to swim like crazy.
I guess this is a like.
I reached the
picture of
surface
it.
and climbed up the rocks
So
to
it's
see a
hard to see 'cause
giant
it's
shadow
blurry.
under the water. It was at least 14 feet long. It surfaced a little more before finally going down.
Like
I hope it would
It
surface
looked
a little
like
more.
an alligator guard.
Why didn't you get a good picture
But
of
I couldn't
that?
imagine a
Yeah.
fish getting that big. It looked like two people holding on to each other swimming.
that
So,
sounds.
who
That's a
knows
weird
what it was?
description.
That's a
Needless
really
to
weird
say, I
description.
haven't been back to jump from the trestle anymore. In 2007, a father and son from Illinois were enjoying the lake when they had their own
Illinois.
sighting. I was too.
No, it's not
being dragged
Illinois.
behind
It's
my dad's
Illinois.
boat.
The S is
I
silent.
just fallen off from a
Illinois.
quick turn, and I was floating in the water waiting for the boat to come back and pick me up. As I was waiting, I saw the neck of a large creature emerge
That's a
from
monitor
the water
lizard.
and rise up about 5 feet.
Yeah, it's just a big
I
lizard.
was terrified.
that's literally
because
a
it was
monitor
only
lizard.
about 40 yards from me, and I don't know if this thing
They
is
look
mean
like
or
that.
not.
They're
I quickly
Granted,
turned and
he
started
was
swimming
leave him
towards the
alone.
boat
He'll-
as my
he'll be
dad
fine.
sped towards me because he saw
also
it too.
their lineage has the
When I got on the
mosasaur,
boat,
by
he
the
said
way.
it
That's
disappeared
where
right
that
after I
comes
turned
from.
around.
They became
We've had a pretty good story to tell ever
some point in their
since.
history, and then died off in the sea.
Lake Norman
Then
is the
went back to
largest
land.
man-made lake in North Carolina, with 520 miles of shoreline and 50 miles of surface area. Its deepest point is 130 feet, and there's lots underneath the water to provide protection for a lake creature. There's an old textile mill, a town, and a grand estate that was called Elmwood when it was above water. Those little ghost
and their
towns and
closest
abodes could
descendants
be the
that are
hangout for
related
the
to
creature everybody calls
monitor lizards as
Normie.
well, the verandid lizards,
But
the ones that are really
what
fucking
could
huge.
this creature be?
Like the prehistoric ones. Humans
Some
saw
have
those. They
speculated,
interacted
like
with those
one of the
things.
accounts above,
Oh,
that it's
really?
an
Yeah, they
overgrown
live that. They
alligator
live that
gar.
long.
The
you know about
alligator
the
gar is a
short-faced
slender
bear?
fish with
I
a
do,
pointy
yes.
snout, and it's pretty
I
scary
just saw
looking.
like the
The
recreation
largest
of that
one
thing
that
the
has
other
ever
day.
been
It's
recorded
fucking
was only
terrifying.
8.5 feet long.
I mean, there are a lot of
Either there's a world
giant
record
animals
gar
human
in the
ancestors
waters of
probably
Lake
saw.
Norman,
Like, I mean, the mammoth they
or
obviously
it's
saw.
something else.
Fucking giant ground sloth they saw.
Others have speculated that what people
saw
are
Imagine
seeing
you
is an
make your way
actual
all
alligator.
through Russia, you
Yeah.
finally cross the
Alligators are
fucking
certainly not
land bridge,
native
and
to
then
the
that
area.
prick is
That
just
thing,
there.
Several
Yeah.
have been spotted at nearby Lake Wiley since
Like,
the
ah,
mid-2000s.
fuck, I'm going back to Russia. I'll be a
Yeah.
Slav.
Most people can
Yeah,
recognize
I'm
an
leaving
alligator,
here.
even under duress. Still, others speculate that it's
Also
just
get
a
the,
big old catfish.
The giant
It
armadillo
is
too. That's
suspected
another
that
big
left
thing.
How is that a
dry,
catfish?
catfish
That's not
can
a
live
catfish.
for 30 to
That-
35
whatever
years.
that is, that's not a catfish.
And while these old boys may get big around the middle, they don't tend to get much longer than 5 feet long at the most. So what are people seeing at North Carolina's Lake Norman? A
Also,
really
the catfish
big,
like the
but
worst fish you
known
can possibly
fish
catch if you're
species?
fishing, because they
An
have
alligator,
barbs and barbs
Could
and
it be
barbs in their
something
mouths.
strange and undiscovered? Our own
They
Nessie,
taste good, don't get me wrong, when you
lurking
cook
in
them
the
right and
deep
everything else,
waters
but
of
to actually
this
like
popular
get
Tar
one,
Heel State
fuck
tourist
that.
destination.
Yeah,
they
fuck
are a
that.
pain in the ass.
People have been telling
Not to
these
mention they
stories
can be
since soon after the
semi-aquatic,
lake
meaning they
filled
can
up with
survive
water.
on land for a while.
Until somebody pulls up Normie and says, "Here he is." The world may never know.
World may never know.
Could it have been a
Could it have been a pterodactyl?
pterodactyl? I almost said pterodactyl.
I doubt it, but
pterodactyl.
They were the
Do
largest
tell.
creatures to ever attain flight,
Yeah.
with wingspans reaching nearly 40 feet.
They weren't the
Pterosaurs
biggest in their species
ruled
of
the
animals, though. That would
prehistoric
be like
skies for
terror
over
birds and other
100
things
million
like that.
years.
Those are fucking
So
terrifying.
they died out with the dinosaurs about 65 million years ago.
Or did they?
Or did they? There have been many
Or
modern-day
did
sightings
they?
of creatures that, by eyewitness descriptions,
Yeah,
sound
that looks like-
pterosaurs.
That looks real.
There
Somebody
are also
rated, like,
intriguing
Jurassic
rock
Park for
carvings
that.
and even photographs that suggest that this species of amazing
Man, that
flying
picture sucks.
monsters could have survived extinction.
But could
Could
they?
have soared through the skies in small numbers in remote parts of the world.
Yeah, I'm gonna trust African camel quality.
Africa's Kongomodo. While
Oh, the
other
Kokomodo,
reports
yeah.
of pterosaur-like
That's one.
creatures
That's
have come
that's
out of
Congo.
Arizona, Mexico, and Crete,
No,
It is out
you're
of
saying the
Central
Congo
Africa
Mongo
that
isn't
some of the
from
most interesting
it gets from the
anecdotes have
Congo?
come.
Oh no, who would have thought?
While traveling
Where
through
could it have
Zambia
come
in
from?
1923,
Oh, Zambia.
Frank Melland collected
Zambia.
reports from natives of an aggressive flying reptile they called Kangamoto,
Kangamoto.
which means overwhelmer of boats.
Boats, yeah.
The natives, who were occasionally
He was one
tormented
of the
by
ones that
these
came up when
creatures,
I went to the Congo
described
shit,
them
though,
as being
too.
featherless
I mean,
with
it's all over.
smooth skin,
There's a lot of crossing
having
between
a
the areas
beak
and
full
stuff.
of teeth and a wingspan of between 4 and 7 feet. When shown illustrations of pterosaurs, Mellon reported the natives identified them as most resembling Kangamoto. In 1925, a native man was allegedly attacked by a creature that he identified as a
Are you
pterosaur.
sure about that?
This occurred near a swamp in Rhodesia, where the man
Oh,
suffered
Rhodesia.
a large
Oh,
wound in his
Rhodesia,
chest
base.
that he said was caused by the monster's long beak.
Could
In
have
the
just
late
been a pissed off
1980s,
pelican.
noted cryptozoologist
I mean, the
Roy
biggest.
Mackle
Can you imagine,
led
though?
an
Let's say,
expedition
let's go
into
hypothetical
Namibia,
here, just a
from
little
which
bit,
he
right?
had heard reports of
Let's
a
say it's not.
prehistoric-looking
They
creature
think
with a
it's like a
wingspan
giant
of up to 30
pterosaur or anything
feet.
like that. Let's say it's not that,
Pterodactyl
but a
in
giant species of
California.
undiscovered bat.
Bud Davis,
That'd
a
be fucking
54-year-old
terrifying.
IT executive
I mean,
from
yeah,
California,
if that was a giant
told
bat, that would be
Cryptozoology News
equally, if
he
not
and a
more,
relative were
terrifying.
driving to
Yeah.
Winnemucca when they came
Because
upon
there have
the
been accounts in
unusual
like
sight.
places in Africa, like
We
huge
noticed the
bats
creature in
as
the
well.
median of the highway,
So
he said about the
who knows?
encounter. It was about 3 feet off the ground and about
I
20
think that's a
feet
little
from
bit
our
more
car on the
plausible than
driver's
a
side.
living dinosaur.
You know, that
Davis
would be my
believes
guess.
that the
but,
animal
I
had
mean,
just
who
begun to
knows?
take
I'm not
flight
some
right
like
before their vehicle
African
approached at
bushman
11
that
p.m.
this thing hunts down.
as it was
No.
reportedly having problems getting off the ground. It was struggling to get enough lift to be able to
And
fly
to be
over the
also
car
fair
once
to
it
a
saw
lot of
us.
things too, there have been
The creature's wings cleared the
discovered
front
almost
windshield
extinct
by
animals
only
in
inches.
Africa as well.
So we
from
both saw
Lazarus
the
tax
thing
and,
very clearly
like
as
the
it flew across the front
that's
of
the
our
one that's
vehicle,
related to a
left
giraffe.
to right and out of
It
sight.
was thought to have been extinct in like
The man
the
describes the
1800s,
bird
but they
as
found it
being
again in,
gray
like
in color
1970.
and had a long
hell
and
yeah.
thin neck. Its head, says Davis, was also thin and pointy with a long beak. He remembers it had a crest on the top of its head. The body was hump-like.
It looks like
and appeared to
fucking
be heavy,
Rodan.
thin,
It does
with
look
long
like
legs.
rodent. Actually, it kind
The
of looks like
wings
a
were
bat.
diamond-shaped.
Yeah,
a
it
little
does.
bit.
Actually, you're
Claws
right,
at
it
the end
does.
of each
Like a
wing.
horned bat.
A
Yeah,
long,
that's
thin
weird.
tail. From tip of beak to tip of tail, it was longer than the windshield was wide, so we'd estimate the overall length at 4 to 5 feet. The wingspan was wide. When in the open position, the left wingtip was positioned beyond the hood of our vehicle. The bottom half of the right wing was not visible. It was covered by the roof of the car, so we'd estimate the width tip to tip to be 6
Tip
to
to
7
tip.
feet, explained
Oh
Davis.
no.
The IT executive thinks the bird looked like a pterosaur, a flying reptile believed to have lived during the Jurassic, and went
It's
extinct
totally
by
a
the end of the
pterosaur.
Cretaceous, about 65
It's just
million
to me
years
that
ago.
things like that to have
Thunderbird,
lived so
also
long
known
without
as
anyone
rock, is
discovering
the
them seem very
nomenclature
unlikely,
used
let
by
alone the
Native
events in the
Americans
human
to
his-
refer
and
to
the- sorry, not
bird-like
human history,
creatures
the Earth
with
history,
reptile
where
features
shit
that
was
are believed to
literally
be
like
related
we
to the
can't live in
extinct
this
reptile.
atmosphere anymore.
In 1890,
Right,
the
like the-
Arizona
yeah, the
newspaper,
composition is-
Tombstone
Oh, look at
Epitaph,
that.
Yeah.
reported that 2 ranchers
totally
had
real.
allegedly
I
killed
believe
a
it.
winged monster, similar to an alligator, in the desert between the Whetstone and the Huachuca Mountains.
Next thing you know, there's gonna be a
The article
tremor.
about the
Yeah.
pterosaur in particular made me curious. When I looked up some images for those, I realized that is what we had to have seen, said Davis.
Must have been. Why
Davis
would it
says
be
that he
anything
knows
else?
what he saw was real.
Trust me,
sighting,
guys.
which
I'm
lasted about
I'm totally
15
telling the
seconds,
truth here in the
Didn't
Wild
allow
West.
for any picture or video taking. Up until this
not
evening,
just
I
some
had
dirt
never heard
farmer.
of a pterosaur
No, why would it be
before.
that?
But the image I looked up is exactly what we saw. It was awesome.
It was
and
aw-
frightening
it was
at the
awesome.
same time, he said. Interstate 80 in Nevada cuts across the Lahontan Valley, a desert some people still refer to as the 40-mile desert. A minister claims she and her daughter saw an unidentified flying creature that looked like it was straight out of Jurassic
The red
Park.
circle makes me think it's real.
In
so-
1994,
'cause red
the
circles
minister,
mean-
Listen,
a
if it didn't have the
50-year-old
red
Texas
circle, I
resident
wouldn't believe
and
it.
avid
Exactly.
bird watcher, said they were at Stone
That's how you
Lakes
know
National
something's true on the
Wildlife
internet.
Refuge,
Red
south
circle.
of
That's exactly
Sacramento,
right. I
when
see
the
it every
creature showed up
Monday
on a clear
when I see
spring
the
day.
red. Actually, they've moved from like red
We were
circles, like
hiking
blue
and
and
looking for blue
green
herons and
arrows.
other
I'm like, what the
migratory
fuck?
birds. The woman told
What the fuck?
Cryptozoology
I guess because
News.
the red circle thing.
My daughter and I saw the bird first, and we both pointed to it, stunned and in shock as we tried to come up with a logical explanation for what we thought we were seeing. It was not a kite, it was a real animal, she added about
No,
the
we knew
alleged
he said kite,
1994
not what you
encounter.
thought he said.
She says they
I
observed
was
the
gonna
animal
hold
for
my
about 20
tongue.
minutes as it circled an area and then veered off in a different direction.
If this was my channel,
She
I'd say the
explains
funny
that
word.
even though it makes her nervous to have to admit it, the
I won't
bird
get you
was
eaten.
very pterodactyl
I
in shape.
appreciate it.
And
Today.
That is the point of reference I
Today.
had for it. I remember I said,
Listen, I can't tell you what Future
impossible.
Weed's gonna do. That guy's
They
a
are an
dick.
extinct
That's
species.
right.
My daughter, who was well read on extinct birds, kept pointing out the unusual features of this animal. She says her daughter described the creature as having a featherless, long, thin tail and a pterodactyl-like head. Its wings, she explained, were not
Kind of looks
shaped
like
like
like somebody
bird's
like
wings.
photoshopped
It
a
had a
plane a
long
little
neck,
bit to make it.
Long
It
head,
does. I
long
agree.
pointed beak area. It
It's like
had
if you
a
look
large
at like right
wingspan,
under the
Yeah, the
blue
wing.
yeah,
head.
it looks like
It
a like
was gliding very
engine.
high up.
It
with
does.
very little
I
flapping
know it's supposed to be
movement
the
of
quote
its
unquote
wings.
like claw they had.
The
but that's
minister
not what that
admits to
looks like.
being
It
a
looks
little
like
freaked
engine
out
wing.
at the time and wondered whether the creature would attack them. I couldn't wait to get back to the car. When we got back, we couldn't stop talking about it. The two family members say that even though to this day they cannot positively identify the bird as a dinosaur, they know what it resembled. While talking to my daughter, we both Googled photos of pterodactyl
Googled
sightings,
it.
and some of them are similar to what we saw, she confessed. Being birders, we were familiar with
Wow.
most birds.
Being
I didn't think I could call Audubon Society and tell them about the sighting because this bird was not on their checklist. They would have likely told me that I misidentified it because it was up in the air and it was probably a crane or heron.
Possibly.
Believing that would certainly solve things, but my brain wouldn't rest.
My
What we
brain
saw was
don't
neither
rest
a
that
crane
way.
nor a heron.
Trust
We
me,
saw
guys,
a
it's
real,
real.
living animal that was not familiar to us and looked like it was straight out of Jurassic Park. And the sighting, she explains, also carries
But
social
Jurassic Park
problems
dinosaurs
and the
aren't
risk
how
of
dinosaurs really
ostracization.
look like.
I did tell a couple of people.
They're made that way
I
because
told
they,
them factually,
literally
and
put an
they
in-universe
just stared
explanation
at
of
me
why they
saying,
look that way. Because it's supposed to be like, oh,
wow.
people believe dinosaurs
I
look this
don't
way,
want
but
to
they
be
didn't really look
exposed to the
this way. It's because
ridicule
the
and have
frog
to
DNA,
defend my
the
story,
other kind
which
of
I
weird
finally
DNA
got
they
brave
put in
enough
there
to share.
to make them like.
Listen,
My
I've seen
daughter and I
Jurassic
talk
Park
about it
once or twice. I'm a
Discussing
confident
it is
expert.
like
Yeah.
self-counseling. It gives us an opportunity to share that experience again
I'm
and
something of a
validate each other.
professional.
It's like your
At least
idea
we
of
know
like
what
a,
we saw,
a designer
and discussing
code
it
or
is
something.
one way
That's
to
what
try
the
to keep the
that's what
story
dinosaurs
alive.
They kind of look like a
Unravel the
Skyrim
mystery in our
dragon.
heads.
It does.
Like,
I agree.
Find
It
some
doesn't
kind
look
of
like a
understanding
fucking...
and clarity
listen, give me
as
a
time
4K
passes.
fucking picture
It
of
does
this
help to
goddamn
read
lizard,
online that
and
others
maybe
are
I'll
seeing
believe
these
it.
animals too.
Maybe
This
it's
is
a
what
dragon.
gave me the idea to come forward and share our sighting, said the minister.
I mean, Skyrim is for the Nords.
Raptor in the Georgia
Skyrim
woods.
is for the north. Oh,
A
the
young man and
raptor
his
in Georgia?
grandfather see
What?
a creature that
Let's see about
looks
this.
like a living dinosaur.
You sure it's not just some crackhead?
Yeah,
This happened to me and my grandpa on a hunting trip in July
Oh, I can
2008.
totally believe it.
I
believe
don't see my grandpa very often, so I always take the chance to take trips with him.
it. To the woods
He's
to
pretty
hunt.
much an outdoorsman
Yes.
and enjoys hunting, fishing, and just being out in nature.
Okay, so that's why you
We
bought
were in the
grandpa's.
woods
So
about
turn to
3
Dino
o'clock in the morning.
Forest.
We were on Grandpa's land in Georgia. It's a pretty
Going on
place
down to
with
Georgia?
the typical Georgia woodland and a few
And
grassy
there's just a
plains.
portal to time
We were
there
walking
where
on a
fucking
little
dinosaurs
rocky
pull
road,
through.
heading for a site where Grandpa
See, I
often
could believe
sees
that
deer.
more.
Yeah.
But then again,
As
I'm
normal,
high.
there
So,
were a
you know.
lot of sounds going on at night in the woods.
Well,
We
it is
didn't
I don't know
notice
about the
nothing
best
and
source of
remained quiet
information.
to not scare away anything. Suddenly, we heard an unusual noise we had never heard before
Oh
on
god.
our many hunting trips. Grandpa looked at me
If it
and
was a
listened.
fucking velociraptor, you
Then
could
he
beat the
raised
shit
his
out of it.
finger
They're
in front
small
of
as
his mouth
hell
to show me
in
that
real life.
he shouldn't make any more movements.
The other raptors that are
I heard
not.
a lot of movement and more of that noise.
Velociraptor
No,
itself
again,
is.
according
I can't really
to
describe
the
the sounds,
documentary
but
called
I sure
Jurassic
can
Park,
describe what I
they're
saw.
like 6 feet tall and can open
even
doors.
when it was pretty dark.
Yes, doors that have
we
to
just
have
kept
the,
listening to the
the
sounds
pole
as
thing on them
suddenly
instead of an
something
actual
came
Did you
knob.
walking
even
slowly
did you
out of the
even
bushes
watch the
and
required
onto the
material
road
for the stream
maybe
today, Gene?
I
150
did.
yards in
And
front
I've
of
watched
us.
plenty of things that that's a
My eyes
Dilophosaur,
got
by the way,
really
not a
big.
Velociraptor.
And at that
Velociraptor
moment,
just
I
sounds
wasn't even
cooler.
scared. Just amazed to see this creature.
It did not
didn't
look
move.
like that.
As crazy as it sounds,
Oh, it totally
it
looked like that.
looked
Trust me.
just
Trust
like
me.
a raptor from the popular Jurassic Park movie.
Yeah, exactly.
I just froze because I thought things like that lived many millions of
And it
years
didn't
ago.
look like that.
It had a long, stiff tail, walked on 2 feet, and had
They have
short
feathered
arms.
tails. They're feathered
It looked
dinosaurs.
lizard-like and had a huge claw on both of its
They're
feet
related to
and
birds.
smaller claws on its arms. The
Why did it have
appeared
balls
to
on
us
his arm?
that
That's
it
weird.
might be
That
able to
is
run
weird, I
fast,
agree.
so we decided to just not move at all. It raised its head in the air, and it seemed like it was smelling the air. I estimated its height about 5 feet at the
Well,
shoulders.
guess what? Someone made a genetic
After sniffing the air,
experiment,
it
put
made
it out
those
in your
sounds
fucking
again,
woods.
and turned
That's
around
what that
and
is.
ran off in the bushes. Grandpa and I waited until we felt safe again, and then quietly made our way back to the truck and drove home. In the truck, we talked to each other about what we had just seen.
And we both
decided
agreed
to
we shouldn't
not
have
tell it
smoked
to
that
Grandpa
meth
because
before we went out to
he would
bonding
think we were
time.
crazy.
We kind of worried about the
I've never
mushrooms we had
believed in
found
stuff
on
like
the trail. Maybe
ghosts
they weren't
and
edible
creatures
mushrooms
and
after
paranormal
all.
stuff, and I still don't believe in ghosts. But since that encounter, I believe in creatures that science doesn't know about.
But science
That's my
knows about
story.
dinosaurs.
As odd as it sounds, I know what I saw. This has been another strange but true
Tatsuya,
story.
I know all about terror birds.
Have you
I'm
ever
glad
had a
they're fucking
run-in with a
dead.
creature that you can't quite
If
explain?
they came back, I'd kill them
We would
again.
love to hear about it.
That's right.
Send us an
That's right.
email to strange but true
Now we're
stories
gonna
too.
move on from this, because we got the Kasai Rex to learn about. Here we go. Cryptid Central presents a short documentary. I fucking had indigestion there as I said that. That's great.
That's the real cryptid.
The Kasai Rex.
Dinosaurs.
They
The
look as
dominant
real as
life
this.
forms of
They
planet
look as real
Earth
as
for
this.
over 170 million
IRL ray
years
tracing.
before going extinct at the end of the Cretaceous period
Right in the Yucatan
65
Peninsula,
million
right there.
years
It's
ago.
going.
Or so we think.
Or so we think. good
Numerous
boy.
sightings of dinosaur-like creatures have been reported by people across the world. One such creature is the Kasai Rex.
It's
The
badass.
Kasai
really met
Rex is
Rhino's
native
butt.
to the jungles of the Kasai Valley in
Oh, it
the
is
Democratic
Congo, yeah.
Republic of the
Vanilla
Congo.
hungry.
It is
Be hungry.
speculated to be a surviving species of theropod dinosaur, such
Which
as
would be
the
highly
Tyrannosaurus
fucking
or
unlikely.
Giganotosaurus.
Giganotosaurus.
Although,
I don't know,
if
he
it is
looks like a
indeed
big
a
retard. I
surviving
can see him
African
doing some
theropod, then it'd be more likely a species of Spinosaur, Allosaur, or a
It could be a Spinosaur,
Carcharodontosaur,
but if it
as
did
there
have
have
a
been
sail.
no Tyrannosauric
Oh, yeah,
remains
'cause
discovered in
Spinosaurus,
Africa as of yet. Other depictions describe the beast as a species of gigantic monitor lizard,
I believe that
or
one
a
more.
terrestrial
See, I can believe that, like an
Crocodile,
undiscovered
yeah.
species
in
of like
1932,
monitor-
an experienced
dragons.
Swedish
Yeah.
hunter, John Johnson, wanted
they
to
do
hunt
have fucking,
elephants.
monitor
He and
lizards
his
in Africa.
servant left their camp,
Yes.
crossing a swamp and finally
Savannah
reaching
monitor
the
is one, the Nile
savannah
monitor is
in
another.
the Kasai Valley, which seemed
Oh, the
desolate
black
could be a
monitor.
as there were
half-melted
no
giraffe.
animals
How do we
anywhere.
know?
Until the servant yelled in excitement after spotting some elephants. Johnson got his gun ready, but something was
Ivory
wrong.
hunting.
There were only 2 elephants instead of an entire herd.
Oh shit.
About 44 meters away, something in the underbrush was stalking the elephants. Suddenly, a strange creature jumped out of the
Like
brush.
just like this.
The servant
Wow,
fled
that's-
while Johnson,
I can't believe
paralyzed,
they got real
changed
footage of
aim
it.
and shot at the creature. He fired 3 times, with only 1 shot finding its mark. The creature backed
What a
off
bad
and
shot.
retreated.
Yeah.
Johnson and his servant regrouped and decided
So-
to go back to the camp.
So here's
but
the
first,
thing. I'm just gonna
they
pause
had
this
to
real quick for a factoid for people that don't know about this, especially since Jurassic Park tried to make it a thing too. Remember how they say if you had stood still, the dinosaur couldn't see you?
Yes, but
100%.
the Tyrannosaurus
Yes.
has an amazing
Yep.
Olfactory system.
Not to mention the fact it has an amazing eyesight too. Tyrannosaurus Rex is
yes.
believed to be one of the best animals on this entire planet and the best eyesight that could see. Huge.
And that boy was fast as fuck.
Yeah, they are fast. Huge.
cross the swamp.
eyesight.
They were
Probably one of the
halfway
best
through
eyes
when they
in
heard
the
a
entire,
splash.
Animal kingdom.
Thinking of
Existed.
crocodiles, Johnson looked everywhere until they saw 22 meters
So you'd be
away the
fucked.
same
They could see
creature
that
that they
shit away
saw
from
in the
like 200
savannah,
miles.
devouring
They
a
could
freshly
see my
killed
dinosaur
before you see it.
rhinoceros. Johnson's
That'd be my
servant ran
dinosaur
away,
name, like
terrified,
Dinosaur
while he
Hunter
stayed
Johnson.
still.
Dinosaur hunting.
He immediately thought of
That's
shooting
right.
the creature, but was terrified when he'd realized the servant was holding his shotgun. But
Oh.
John still had his camera, so he took a photo of the creature, which, upon hearing the click, sank quickly into the lake.
That doesn't look
Upon
real at
his
all.
return, John described what he saw.
It's totally real.
It was reddish-brown in colour, with blackish-coloured stripes, he said. It had a long snout and numerous teeth. He decided that the creature, 13 meters long, must have been a Tyrannosaurus, and also said the legs were thick. It reminded me of a lion, built for speed. In 1933, a group made up of 5 hunters went to the Kasai Valley to hunt the creature called the Kasai Rex by the newspaper Rhodesia Herald, which they thought was a giant crocodile, and that they would hunt it to sell the skin at a good price. They arrived in the Kasai Valley and passed through the same swamp where Johnson had passed the previous year. One of the hunters was frightened to see a huge tail sink into the lake. They initially thought it was so big it must be an anaconda. They readied their weapons, but were surprised by a wave of water that fell on them from the left side.
Oh yeah,
the tail had
I only
left
found
the
those in
marsh
Britain,
one of the
so I was very
hunters who
surprised to
fell
see it.
into the
It
water.
was the only one at the gas
The other
station,
4
too,
began
so-
to fire into the water, seeing nothing but waves that dispersed throughout the surface. The creature, however, disappeared. The group managed to hide themselves, and in the end, they left. In 1950, Robert Henderson, a great hunter and expert zoologist, had thought about making a trip to the jungles of the Congo to find exotic and never-before-discovered species. A year later, in August 1951, Henderson made his trip to the Kasai Valley, passing by the Kasai River. He was aided by a group of locals. The safari was expected to last about 6 days, and they would camp so that Henderson would have enough time to hunt.
I haven't tried it yet, but
However,
it
after the
looks
6th day
delicious.
had passed, no one saw the men return, so they waited a little longer, thinking they hadn't come back yet because it had been raining, causing the river to rise. Some time had passed, and still no sign of them, so a search party consisting of 10 people from the village and 5 people from the military regiment set out to find them. The next day, they found traces of a camp, seeming to be the initial base of Robert and his group. The rescuers estimated that they were there for about 2 days. It was thought that Henderson had gone to the depths of the Kasai Valley to hunt something else, since they had already found gazelle skin and viscera close by. Continuing on, the valley strangely seemed desolate, with no signs of life anywhere, but after having walked several kilometers, they found the remains of Robert.
That's just mean.
They had found a temporary camp,
very
which
accurate,
was completely destroyed, and about 10 meters around there were several pieces of Robert's companions, with limbs and heads everywhere, some of which had been crushed, not typical of lion attacks. The remains were so mixed up that it was impossible to tell who each one belonged to. Nothing more of Robert was found than a single hand and forearm. The official version of the events provides 2 hypotheses. The first was that the men were murdered by poachers, presumably ivory traffickers, but the marks on the bodies did not match up with bullets or knives. The second was that it was an animal who had killed Robert and his group. It was not explained what had happened to the crushed body parts, including a head. After several years, the case was closed without any definitive conclusion. However, there was one mysterious detail that the case left out. The rescue team had described that it looked like something huge and heavy had advanced on the camp.
Dinosaur.
Has to be Dinosaur.
Oh, got us. See that jump scare? I saw the jump scare.
So, Traveller, now do you think you'll be going on safari anytime soon?
Fuck no, I don't want to go to Africa.
Hell yeah, let's go.
The Kasai Valley.
We're going to the Congo. A really safe place, I've heard.
Yeah, the Democratic Republic of the Congo. There's no civil strife there that's causing, genocide, but fuck it.
Okay, you could be a war chief or a war lady with fleek established titles.
Oh no.
Okay, so here's this. This is an approximation idea of what it would sound like. So let's take a listen.
Okay.
Even though it's actually, I'm gonna say this right away already too. There's no proof that dinosaurs could roar. If anything, they could possibly chitter like birds, possibly. So here we go.
Listen, don't listen to this dinosaur roar denier.
Don't get me wrong, I would love it if they could, but I don't think they could. Aw, shit. If I heard that in the woods, I'd be scared.
Dude, if I was in the jungle and I heard that, it's just nope.
I'm leaving.
Nope. Going back to my hut.
Yeah.
Fuck this.
Alrighty. Now let's watch this. It's Lost Tape Season 4 review
big game
about the Kasai Rex.
Named Richard and Tom were out in the wilderness of Africa.
I'm going to keep a look on the YouTube part because this might be copyright strike from fucking Animal Planet if they play too much of the footage.
Day to be hunting out here.
Yeah, just be careful.
Tom, Richard said.
Oh, they're not showing. Oh, he's not showing anything. It's just sound effects.
So
okay, good.
What is it you want to aim for? For me, I'm gonna get myself a large Cape buffalo and mount it right on my wall. Tom said.
Dinosaurs aren't real, says Porky.
As well. Whoever gets the biggest one.
Porky isn't real. He's just a rogue AI.
That's right.
Oh, it's on, Tom said. Richard and Tom continued on their big game hunt.
So he's retelling the actual thing instead of showing anything, so that's good. We don't have to worry about anything then.
As they kept looking, they both saw a herd grazing.
Yeah, no copyright images here.
Jackpot. Yep. Now to aim for the biggest one, Richard said. Not before I beat you to it, Tom said. Suddenly, they heard something and turned their heads. It sounded like a growl.
Oh shit, there it is again.
What was that? Richard said.
Sorry, I'm hungry.
Not sure.
That was my tummy.
Do you think that was a lion? Tom said.
That's only no lion I've ever heard.
It sounded much louder than that, Richard said. Richard and Tom waited to hear it again, and when they didn't, they dismissed it. Must have been a trick playing in our imagination. Oh, come on now. That $50 can't wait once I get the biggest buffalo, huh? Tom said.
Nothing like betting on what game you're going to get in the African wilderness.
That's me, Richard said. Nah, I don't think so. Now let's get the biggest buffalo, Tom said. Richard nodded, and then the two of them pointed their guns at the herd, looking for the biggest one. As they were looking, they didn't realize there was something nearby growling. The herd of buffalo sensed the nearby danger and all immediately ran off. This confused Richard and Tom as they saw this and lowered their guns.
Also, it's funny that they want to kill a water buffalo.
Why would you? Why would you ever lower your gun when you're hearing spooky roars?
Yeah, I don't know why you would do that.
I guess.
Even if you see the buffalo roam off, I think you'd want to like keep your gun out, aimed up, just in case something else is there.
You might as well get that instead, Tom said. Sounds all right to me, Richard said. As I looked around for
I don't know when this is
a lion nearby,
supposed to be taking place, but most times you go into the fucking wilderness of anywhere in Africa, you usually need a guide with you.
Right?
The very same growl from earlier.
Sounds like early 1900s when they just didn't give a fuck.
No.
Richard, do you hear that again? That's the same.
It's like one of the biggest tourism things that people have for Africa now. Just go there and hunt.
Even if it's not a lion, it might be another animal. And please, that animal is still going to be going on my wall, Richard said.
I'm glad you're laxed about it, dude.
I don't know. It doesn't sound like any known animal I know of. We should maybe get out of here, Tom said. Oh, come on, dude. Don't you want that $50 or what? Well,
$50 whole dollars.
Not anymore. Seriously, we better get out of here.
50 whole dollary
Tom
dudes.
said before being interrupted by the source of the growl. Suddenly, something very big and large came charging at them as they turned around and screamed. As the unseen creature killed them both.
And who told the story?
There are creatures.
Okay, now I have to watch for it now. For this thing.
But new technology makes
us right now it's eyeball it.
If our eyes see it. Back away from the girl. If our cameras capture it.
Also, this whole so Lost Tapes was the idea of like making a found footage thing about cryptids and other shit like that too. It was on Animal Planet. They tried to promote it as like a real thing, but they got like caught really quickly because they go, yeah, that's not real. I'm like, oh yeah, we know. It's like,
oh yeah, we know, but stupid people won't. Shut up. Don't ruin it. Leave our racket alone.
Yeah. Enter a realm where
facts versus fiction.
Science meets legend.
Oh god, the gray alien in the tree. Shoot that demon.
These are all legit. All of these are legit.
I believe it.
Lost Tapes.
On June 19th,
never mind.
2010, Zoologist Marcus Flynn traveled to the Republic of Congo in Africa to study elephants, hoping to learn more about their intelligence, of how much more smarter these animals were capable of being.
The fucking gray alien gets me every time I see that intro.
That on this very same day, his life would not be the same, as he would encounter something which was thought wouldn't have even been possible.
Also, the name of this channel, by the way, I don't know if I mentioned it, is called M. Sears.
Marcus Flynn was in his Jeep before stopping.
M. Sears?
M. Sears.
He then took out a video camera, which he turned on.
Yeah, turn on that video camera.
I'm Marcus Flynn, and I'm here in the Republic of the Congo to study more about the intelligence of elephants, so I can show people how much more smarter these amazing animals can truly be. Right now, I'm searching for one, or maybe
Come on, has history taught us nothing of the majestic war elephant?
With that, he started his Jeep again.
That fucking went through mountain ranges to go sack Rome with Hannibal?
As he drove, he saw many kinds of animals.
Listen, alright, it's not my research, okay? So I don't care about that.
And many more animals.
I need my grant,
He
Gene.
even spotted a leopard that had a kill in its mouth as it climbed up the tree to feast on. However, the main thing he was focusing on was to see any elephants. And so far,
elephantitis.
After a while, there was still no sight of any
I am not an elephant.
Are you sure about that?
It appears I can't find any elephants so far.
A scale of 1 to 10.
But I know they're around here. I might as well
give it a good 9.8. I'm not an elephant.
He kept looking for
Alright, chat, vote now. What do you...
Suddenly, something
is Gene an elephant or not?
Behind him was heard.
1 for yes, 2
He
for
stopped his
definitely
Jeep
yes.
immediately and then quickly turned around to see what it was. Before he could see it, though, all he saw was a glimpse of it, not being able to identify what it was.
I'm a living dinosaur.
Do you suppose that might be an elephant? It must have been. It sounded
2
really
for
large.
definitely yes.
They're the largest animals in Africa, as well as the largest land animals on Earth.
2.
Marcus Flynn looked at his camera and then spoke.
Dakota, stop spamming.
Now, I'm going to follow the source of that sound. For all I know, it might have been an elephant.
Your spam doesn't work, boy.
Once I see them, I can see what signs of intelligence they are capable of doing that has never been recorded.
Oh, did you hear about Henry Cavill, Gene?
He then started his Jeep.
Oh, you mean the Warhammer thing? Yeah, I know about that.
Yeah, he's going to be an executive producer on the Warhammer Cinematic Universe.
Yeah, we'll see how that turns out. I want him to be really good creative control for it. I do, but I don't know because it's Amazon. Amazon's always a
still driving through the wilderness of Africa.
I'm rooting for him.
I root for him too, but I just don't know because Amazon goes that way.
Time kept passing.
Sometimes they get good shit like, making The Boys, and other times it's Rings of Power, so,
He got out his Jeep, holding his video camera, and began to watch the elephant.
Well, if Cavill's, producing it, he'll probably be like, no, this is not more accurate, we're not doing it.
And from the looks of it, it's a huge one. Now, I will experience
like I said, I have faith in him doing it.
Well, the thing about Warhammer is, so it separates from the Rings of Power and whatnot. In the far future, they don't care about color. They just care about, are you human? Can you shoot gun?
Exactly. That's all they care about.
They can do whatever they want, and it still fits.
True.
Let's see if this shows any signs of intelligence.
Just no Space Marine with tits.
Marcus Flynn used the video camera and began recording the elephant.
Where was that meme? I gotta find that. Someone posted that to me a while. Actually, I think they posted it to you too.
Aren't these animals amazing or what? They're among some of the most intelligent animals, along with dolphins, chimpanzees, and octopuses. Well, hyenas maybe, too, since they have intelligence that is on par with primates, but honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if elephants are more intelligent than any of them, due to all the studies many people have found out about their intelligence. For a few minutes, the elephant kept on eating the leaves. Suddenly, it did something intelligent.
As elephants do, they eat leaves.
As it brought down the tree with its tusks. It then picked up the tree and carried it off. Marcus Flynn was amazed.
A few days ago.
Did you see that? I'm the very first person to see something new of what an elephant did with its intelligence.
Its intelligence.
My guess is that the elephant decided to take the tree with the leaves on it just in case food goes scarce. It will still have some leaves to eat, but look what it's doing now. Still recording the elephant with his video camera, he noticed the elephant bringing down another tree and carrying it as well with its trunk. The elephant also ended up grabbing some of the grass from the ground.
There it is.
Just to add to
Porky
its
posted
food
it to
supply.
me, but I will get it for you
the
too.
Elephant left
I'm gonna send this to you in a DM.
Oh, thank you.
Just unbelievable. I've never seen anything like this. It goes to show you that they know what to do if they ever run out of food, and this elephant was doing this just in case, as he noticed there wasn't much stuff to eat in order to survive. What an amazing animal. I'm going to keep on following it.
Yes,
if there's any other signs of real intelligence still yet to be seen by anyone,
I hope
even
the
though I
elephant
found
kills
something
this
new
dude.
what elephants are capable of doing,
Same.
Yeah.
this is certainly just the beginning of it. Marcus Flynn
the
went
grizzly
back to
man,
his Jeep
more like the
after
pachyderm
starting
man
it.
with this.
He began to follow the elephant after a while, still following the elephant.
Elephant.
He eventually lost track of it, and
It's
the
an
elephant was nowhere to be seen. Well, it seems I lost the elephant. No worries, it's probably around here somewhere. And if I can't find it, I'll look for more elephants then.
Elephants.
He kept searching for the very same elephant, and after a long time, he couldn't find it. Well, it seems I might as well go search for more elephants. The one I've been trying to keep track with is pretty much long gone from the area by now. Marcus Flynn drove off, leaving the area looking for different elephants. A half an hour passed and he has not seen any other elephants. Suddenly, Marcus Flynn saw something nearby laying in the ground.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
What's that? He looked closer and realized that it was an elephant, but something didn't seem right about it. It wasn't even moving. Deciding to check it out, Marcus Flynn drove all the way to the elephant before stopping his Jeep and getting out. Upon getting to the elephant, he saw that it was dead, and it was torn open.
Oh, fuck, the elephant's dead.
As if a predator had killed and ate it.
Wasn't me, I swear, government.
Oh my god. It's dead.
It's dead.
Who could have done this? Poachers? No, poachers couldn't have done this. Wait.
They wouldn't bite into the elephant,
look at the wounds.
my guy.
Marcus Flynn took a closer look and saw bite marks. What was strange, though, was they were very large, and whatever killed this elephant must have been as big or bigger.
Aw,
the thing
shit.
was, though, there's no animal other than humans capable of killing an adult elephant, and not to mention, he also doesn't know of any known animal around here, and no animal on land that's bigger or big as an elephant.
Oh.
Could there maybe be some kind of new species of animal that has yet to be discovered? If so, what is it? For a very long moment, he still kept wondering if this could be a new species of animal yet to be discovered. Suddenly, he noticed something in the dead elephant. Huh.
Teeth?
I wonder what this is.
Is it teeth?
He grabbed whatever it was from the dead elephant and looked at it. It appeared to be a very large, sharp tooth that was bigger than his hand.
Oh shit.
Is this a tooth? Upon seeing what it was, he then decided that he shouldn't be here.
Also, I have to mention this too. It's believed that much like crocodilians, certain theropod dinosaurs had teeth, just like the T-Rex does, that were meant to break off and then they would grow back into their prey.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
What is it? For a very long moment, he still kept wondering if this could be a new species of animal yet to be discovered. Suddenly, he noticed something in the dead elephant.
But all the way T-Rex's teeth are too, they're not really like super fangs. They were more like flat and blunt.
He grabbed
that was
whatever
because
it was
for
from
ripping
the dead
flesh
elephant and looked at it.
And ripping open
it
carcasses.
It appeared to be a very large, sharp tooth that was.
They have
bigger
huge.
than his
They have like
hand.
one of the biggest bite forces of any animal on this planet, but their teeth were actually not
tooth?
super sharp.
Really?
Upon seeing what it was, he then decided that
only a few of them
shouldn't
were
be
when
here.
it was to a killing
Before
blow.
leaving,
But
though, he
besides
decided
that,
to
the
keep
rest
the
of their
tooth
teeth were
just
pretty
in
blunt
case
for
this
just
is
tearing.
proof of a yet to be discovered animal, and then turned around to get into his Jeep and leave. But suddenly he noticed a very large footprint with 3 toes. Now
Oh
Marcus
shit!
Flynn was
3
really
toes.
getting
You know,
scared and continued
if
to
you
make his way
videotaped
to
all
the
this,
Jeep.
where are the screenshots?
Yeah.
As he was about to get in, he
Where's
heard
my
a
It was
dial
like
in?
1896 is one thing, but it's 2010.
Without a second thought,
Aw,
he quickly
shit.
started his Jeep and began to drive off. As he drove off, the bushes were rustling rapidly, showing the creature was following him. 5:08 p.m. Marcus Flynn stopped his Jeep and got out. There was no sign of the creature that killed the elephant anywhere, but he was confused. God, what is it? What is that creature? What could it possibly be? I mean, this tooth and the footprints, it resembles a tooth of a theropod, and the footprints resemble it too.
Oh, look at this fancy man with
Is
this
this the
fancy
possibility of a living
education.
dinosaur?
Dinosaur.
No.
Dinosaur.
Dinosaur.
I mean, dinosaurs are extinct, right?
Right? They're extinct.
Any
They don't
living
exist no
one would
more.
have been found by now, right?
Right?
He
They
felt like
find
he was going
dinosaurs.
insane.
They're
Right?
alive.
He drove
Right?
himself
Right?
together, and
Right?
he only had one
Right?
thing in his mind.
You believe me,
still had to
right?
get out of
You
here.
believe me, right?
He had a feeling the
Me,
creature was
right?
a fast
Me,
follower.
Captain Weeb, the
Getting back into
notorious
his Jeep,
truther,
he started
gnome
The
truther.
All of
That's
a sudden,
right. If gnomes
his
are
Jeep
real,
began to
then
act
dinosaurs
strange.
Gnomes are real.
He realized
Yes,
the
they
engine
are.
had overheated.
Have you
and
taken your
pretty much
gnome pill
burned out.
today?
I have.
No,
I've
no,
seen them.
no, come on.
They're out more in winter.
Please. Marcus Flynn tried to get the Jeep
trying to
start
cobble
running,
shoes,
and after
I
trying
hear.
a few minutes, he couldn't get it to work.
Awful people.
Great. The Jeep
Shoe
can't
cobbling gnomes.
work. What am I supposed to do now? I'm in the middle of
Don't
Africa.
be indentured to gnomes.
many
Don't
miles
do
from
that.
people.
Don't ask for favors for them either.
I guess
That's
I'll
a
have
big
to go on
mistake,
foot.
right, Weeb?
Just great. Leaving the Jeep behind, Marcus Flynn, with his video camera as the only thing, he has begun to walk. He heard the roar again and quickly decided to run, now knowing the creature was nearby.
Running's not going to help you when it runs faster than you.
Running and began to walk again.
Well, what if he's
still
part Kenyan?
With no sign of anyone around. Though
Maybe
he knows
he's
in the wilderness, no one will probably be here unless they were hunting or studying animals. He then realized
Madonna is a dinosaur.
There's no sign of any animals. That's strange. Nothing for that matter. Still, I gotta get out of here.
Gnome's a real-life scene
Find
Keemstar.
But how? I'm in the middle of nowhere.
That's right. I'm fast as fuck, boy.
Fast as fuck, boy.
And after a while, he felt he needed a rest and sat down in this tree. There was again no sign of the creature, though chances are it was still following him. He knew that he was probably far from it by now, but he decided to not think about it. What am I gonna do now? I have nothing to protect myself from. But then again, this thing killed an elephant. What chances do I have now? Marcus Flynn looked at his video camera and turned it on. I want to let anyone know that whoever finds this, that if I don't survive, my name is Marcus Flynn, and
this videotape is going to be seized by the government.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, but it's no known animal I know of.
Or a warlord. I haven't decided yet who's going to get this.
Discovered species yet to be discovered, but
maybe then he'll be riding a dinosaur into turf warfare.
My life is more important.
That's right.
So
That's
again,
right. We was dino
if I don't
rulers
survive
and shit.
Anyone finds this, I am Marcus Flynn.
We do not care, says Dakota.
Marcus Flynn began to feel
no
tired
one cares
and fell
about you,
asleep.
Marcus.
11:32 p.m. After many hours of sleep, a similar roar was heard, which quickly woke him up. He realized that sleeping for many hours has wasted his time and that the creature has caught up to him. No, it's too close. Please, no. I don't want to die. He grabbed his video camera and quickly got up and began to run. He ran as fast as he could, but the creature was still following him. Get away! Leave me alone!
Wait. Stop being a bully.
Marcus Flynn was really scared now. The creature was very close. Suddenly he heard nothing and stopped. Was the creature gone? Marcus Flynn felt relief, thinking that his yelling and screaming scared it off.
Yeah, right.
Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you. Oh, thank
right.
you.
Boo, go away.
Yeah,
I spooked
He heard it again and quickly turned to see a glimpse of a long pair of legs and a long tail go by. No, it's still here.
No.
Ever go away?
No.
Marcus Flynn said.
No, it will not.
Without thinking again, Marcus Flynn quickly turned and began to run, trying to get away from the creature. As he kept running, something came in front of him as he looked up and was shocked to see what he caught on his video camera. It was a theropod-like creature with reddish-brown scaly skin, with razor-sharp teeth, and was at least over 13 feet tall and 40 feet long, as well as weighing 7 tons. However, Marcus Flynn could not believe on what he was really seeing. He screamed as he saw the dinosaur fully. The dinosaur roared and quickly lunged towards him.
I was helping for the well help.
Away and began to run.
Me too, but
with the dinosaur still chasing,
still a stock
he ran
scream.
as fast as he can go.
That's right.
He didn't even try to look back, only focusing on trying to survive and get away from the dinosaur. The dinosaur was still coming after him as it began to close in, but suddenly Marcus Flynn saw something. A hole under a tree that was big enough for him to get into, and quickly got in. He crawled his way into the back and curled himself into a ball, trying to stay as far away from the entrance as possible. The dinosaur leaned in and tried to reach him. After failing to get him, the dinosaur gave up and left. Marcus Flynn, however, decided to stay in the hole.
What Marcus saw?
Hoping it would still be there tomorrow.
What Marcus saw was totally real.
Marcus Flynn came out, and the creature was nowhere to be seen.
Bob and General, what Marcus saw.
Help. Luckily,
it's just a guy in a dinosaur outfit riding a horse.
Upon arriving back to the United States, Marcus Flynn gave up his field of zoology and became a cryptozoologist ever since his incident with the living dinosaur.
Wow.
Unfortunately, no one believed his story until the evidence he showed on his video camera made it somewhat believable, and the tooth was taken for analysis, revealing it did not belong to any known animal. After many months, Marcus Flynn decided to return to Africa and had recruited a group of other cryptozoologists to prove the existence
so they all died.
of Kasai Rex. Stories of living dinosaurs have been told throughout many years, but never have been
Next
proven.
time, don't narrate the story. Show us the
dino. To this
dino.
very day.
We can't, because
But
it's
this is
on
the
lost
question.
tapes.
Are dinosaurs truly extinct, or do they live among us?
Oh, sus. The debate continues.
The debate continues.
Alright, speaking of Kasai Rex, let's take a listen to another interpretation of it. Here we go. Here's the noises. Imagine hearing this shit. And then hearing that.
Yeah, fuck that shit.
Oh my god, it is mad.
Yeah, that is one pissed off dinosaur.
It's not happy that you're here.
That's one big dude.
One big bitch.
One big bitch, that's right.
Oh my god. It's pissed.
He's big mad.
Woo! Alright, now it's this video. We have Kasai Rex, the dinosaur that couldn't exist. This is from the channel The Top Man 2.0.
Dinosaurs have been the most amazing creatures that ever inhabited the Earth. It could be said that it would be a dream to be able to see them, but for others, it can be a true nightmare that they walk among us.
Oh god, look at it. Oh, holy shit.
That on video.
Look at the fucking sauropod standing bipedal. That's terrifying.
That is fucking terrifying.
Oh, that's awful.
Dinosaurs,
you know what's worse,
are studied for their valuable
there are lizards today that can do the same. You want to know which ones do? There's a few.
What?
The ones that can do that, yeah, there are ones that can come at you bipedal and run at you like a fucking raptor. There's a few. Would you like to know which ones they are?
Fuck that.
The frilled lizard's one. That one's really fucking fast. Monitor lizards can do that too, and so can tegu lizards. All three of those species can do that. I think there's a few others that can do that too, but they're smaller, so it's not as scary. But seeing fucking
if Komodo dragons can do that, I'd be fucking nope.
Oh, they can. They can do that.
Christ.
Yeah, exactly. They can do that. So that's fucking terrifying.
Geological history. The curiosity of man leads to investigate how they lived and how they really were. But what if there was a dinosaur today?
What if?
In this video, we'll talk about Kasai Rex, which for many is just a legend, even though there are photographs that try to prove the opposite. According to science, Africa is the cradle of humanity, and for some, this place is the home of the Kasai Rex,
changed that theory several times.
Carnivorous animal that apparently survived until
oh my god, look at that! Look at the dinosaur having a gun!
Although there are several arguments against the possibility of the existence of such an animal. This animal takes its name from the Kasai Valley, near the border between the Belgian Congo and Rhodesia, having a distant history from 1932,
sadly, Rhodesia
when a subject with the surname Johnson explored with his servant
it'll always
the
be
surroundings
Rhodesia
to see
me.
the place, seeing a rhinoceros in the moment of the journey. But later, a huge red beast knocked down the rhinoceros, attacking it with total ferocity,
Where's the photo?
causing the servant to run away from the place with terror, while Johnson pointed his rifle at that animal. After this event, Johnson had to leave the place to take shelter, but finally fell unconscious. When he awoke, he found the rhino's body with hyenas and vultures stalking it. Throughout the internet, photographs of the Kasai Rex are still reproduced, the only ones that could be rescued from those years, but whose veracity cannot be verified, and seem to have come out of a fictional
fucking terrifying.
It looks like a zombie.
The first shows the corpse of a rhinoceros, and the second
looks
is
like
clearly
a fucking
model of a theropod.
That looks like a 1930s dinosaur.
Yeah.
According to experts, the Kasai Rex could not exist in Africa because the Tyrannosaurids never inhabited this area of the planet, contradicting the theory of Johnson.
They inhabited in North America, actually. Majority of it.
The savannas of Africa hold many secrets today. It is a vast area with much to explore and learn, and it is not surprising that in future days are found new forms of life, or perhaps not so new, with the possibility of finding living specimens of the Jurassic era, dinosaurs that walked on the Earth in the 21st century.
No. The ones that do are birds and fucking crocodilians.
They ain't got no street lights.
Alright, now we got this.
Just imagine, all right, you're some African fucking bushman.
In this
video, and you're just like, I'm gonna go hunt a lion today, and you just see this big red lizard just staring at you. Like, fuck that.
Yeah, fuck that noise. So here we've got a channel that's known as Hammerson Peters.
Oh.
This is going to be the prehistoric monsters of the Nahi Valley in the Yukon Territory. This one will discuss the Yukon area in general has been known for very good preservation of fossils, not just ones from the more modern period that we lived in as humans, but also the ones back to the Cretaceous and areas like that as well.
Mm-hmm.
So we will watch this, and then we'll see the stuff about the because we're moving on past the Kasai Rex. We're done with that now. We're moving into the Partridge Creek Monster, which is believed to be a dinosaur that is in the Yukon Territory. One that's supposedly still living today. Again, highly dubious, but we'll see.
This video, I'm going to read an abridged version of the last chapter of my book, Legends of the Nahanni Valley, a non-fiction which explores the history and folklore surrounding a remote region in northwestern Canada, infamous for the many mysterious disappearances and beheadings which took place there throughout the 20th century. This particular chapter treats with the various prehistoric monsters, which legend says abide in the watershed of the South Nahanni River, from woolly mammoths to giant bears to a mysterious predator, which I briefly alluded to in my video on the Wahila.
The Wahila.
This video contains references to several frontiersmen, adventurers, and legends with which the casual viewer may be unfamiliar. Any viewers interested in putting these characters and legends into context can, of course, do so by reading my book, Legends of the Nahanni Valley,
which you can
find particularly in the description.
I'm a
shape-shifting
reptilian, which I've also covered on this channel.
Monsters of the Nahanni Valley.
Yes.
Enjoy.
Reptilians exist.
Yeah, I'm one of them.
Who do you think keeps Long John Silver's open?
They have tails of enormous animals, such as the mammoth, and spiders as large as a full-sized grizzly bear, and long worms that are supposed to...
All right, let's just pump the brakes here. Spiders the size of what again? A woolly mammoth?
What was that?
Let's play that back.
They have tails of enormous animals, such as the mammoth, and spiders as large as a full-sized grizzly bear.
Oh my god!
Fuck that! Just the idea of that is terrifying.
Oh, Porky, I hope you're still listening because that thing's totally real.
And long worms that are supposed to be alive today. And nobody can save them from these animals but their doctors. Some of the Indians will tell you they have seen these animals. Poole Field, in a letter to John Jack Moran, February 8, 1913.
There's a lot of people that are, though, so I understand arachnophobia is very real.
Geographers describe the South Nahanni as an antecedent river, a rare sort of waterway, older than the ancient mountains that surround it. Millions of years ago, the Tlagacho, Sunblood, and Ragged Ranges rose up around the South Nahanni, sheltering it from the enormous destructive ice sheets that reshaped the face of North America.
I'm pausing more than I ever usually do. I'm just going to say that spiders never did get that big, even when things in the period of when insects were huge and
they got like what as big as small dogs, right?
I think that's as big as any one of them has ever gotten in some kind of ancient history of the Earth. But that's because oxygen levels being really high.
I know scorpions were like absolutely fucking gigantic.
There's it's not technically a scorpion. It's a sea.
Well, it looks like a scorpion.
It does. It's one that's a distant relative of it that was basically something in a very long period, and it was when the oxygen levels in the ocean were higher. Those ones, yes, they are huge, but they didn't live long when the actual oceans themselves started losing the oxygen they had now. They were highly more oxygenated, just like the regular parts of the planet were too. But eventually that would die off, and they would die off actually really quickly and shrink down.
Throughout the 4 ice ages of the Pleistocene epoch. Due to its unique geological makeup, the Nahanni Valley has remained unaffected by glaciation for at least 100,000 years.
They only got that way because of high oxygen levels.
Over the millennia, all manner of flora and fauna have taken refuge in this secluded haven in the Mackenzie Mountains.
We couldn't live on this planet anymore.
Some of them have left behind fossil evidence of their habitation. Intriguingly, Indian reports and frontier legend suggest that descendants of some of the prehistoric animals that made their homes in the Nahanni, particularly massive, fearsome Pleistocene monsters, still reside there to this very day.
The Aussies have entered the chat, Gene.
In many of his articles on the Nahanni Valley, Philip Godsell related a story told to him by Frank Beaton, who served as the chief factor of Fort St. John, BC. Beaton had heard this story from a scientific party, whose members had heard it from one of their Indian guides, a Cree named Chakina, who had, in turn, heard the tale from his father. A great wanderer, Chakina's father once traveled to the Upper Liard River country, where he fell in with, quote, a primitive tribe armed with bone-shod javelins and clubs made from the jawbones of the moose.
Okay.
Around their fires, these Stone Age people had told of a medicine valley to the north, inhabited by monsters of fearful size and ferocity, unquote. One of the Cree's new Dene acquaintances produced a scrap of buckskin from his medicine bag, on which had been burned the image of one of these monsters.
Okay.
The Cree managed to acquire this charm, and treasured it for years. He eventually passed this artifact down to his son Chakina, who showed it to the scientific party he was tasked with guiding. The scientists told an incredulous Beaton that the figure depicted on the buckskin scrap was a dinosaur, drawn in flawless anatomical detail.
Looks like a cave painting.
Legend has it that a forgotten vale tucked away somewhere in the watershed of the South Nahanni is home to relict populations of woolly mammoths.
Okay.
Giant, hairy, elephant-like creatures generally believed to have gone extinct around 4,500 years ago.
Maybe.
As Philip Godsell put it in Romance of the Alaska Highway, this ravine was said to be, quote, a palm-girt oasis that had escaped the impact of the last ice age, where living dinosaurs and mammoths of a forgotten age disported themselves in steaming pools rich with luxuriant vegetation, unquote. Godsell, in one of his pieces, went on to speculate that, quote, perhaps these ideas originated from Indian reports brought down from the Lower Mackenzie of frozen mammoths being exposed in the falling away of ice cliffs, leaving their flesh, though millions of years old, still fit when thawed for dog feed, unquote.
Dog feed?
Indeed, the North Country once abounded with stories of trappers and prospectors happening upon frozen mammoth carcasses during their boreal wanderings. For example, the 1935 book The Golden Grindstone, The Adventures of George M. Mitchell, relates a tale told by a Yukon prospector named Angus Graham, who claimed to have come across the remains of a mammoth ensconced in ice in 1898. Unfortunately, the specimen disintegrated when it was finally exposed to the air. On October 21st, 1937, a mammoth washed up on the shores of Wrangel Island,
I don't know about that,
situated in the Chukchi Sea north of the Bering Strait, its frozen flesh in near perfect condition. And during the gold rush of '98, stampeders came across, as Pierre Burton put it in The Mysterious North, quote, the bones and skulls and even the flesh of animals that have long since vanished from the great tusked mastodon, and varieties of bison, deer, and horse, long extinct, unquote. All of these things embedded in the frozen muck of the Klondike gold fields.
So that makes me wonder, though, if they're finding the horses, the old ancient cows, and things like that, because the bison would be there too. That's what he mentioned, because those are the bigger bison, the giant ones. Then technically, what should be there too? Because they were documented being in that period before they went to other places in the world. There should be camel remains in there as well, because camels come from North America originally. They crossed the rivers. Yes, they did.
Gold fields. Frozen corpses aren't the only vestiges of woolly mammoths to show up in the North Country. On particular stretches of the Yukon River and along the shores of Williston Lake in Peace River Country, one can find ancient mammoth footprints baked into stone, reminiscent of the giant three-toed tracks reported by Hank Russell, Jack Lee, and Frank Perry in their Tropical Valley accounts.
Those guys sound like reputable sources.
Mammoth tusks are also found in surprising abundance in the Northland. Frontiersmen would often decorate their cabins with ancient bones they picked up in the wilderness, and trinkets fashioned from mammoth ivory were once a staple of northern gift shops. Dene mythology is filled with tales of giant, monstrous animals called Yeredi, which roamed the world in ancient times. These creatures typically lived underground, or beneath lakes and rivers, and every once in a while people come across their bones, which are called Katian Tigna, or the bones of the underground game. Some of these monsters are simply gigantic versions of modern animals. For example, Dene legend has it that ferocious giant beavers once wandered about the North Country, terrorizing the natives they met along the way. 3 of them lived on Lake Athabasca, and drowned people by slapping their huge tails on the water.
Wow, what a dick.
Another giant beaver built his home on Great Slave Lake at the mouth of the Yellowknife River, while another inhabited Nahanni Butte. The Beaver Dam Rapids on the Liard River constitute the remains of one of his lodges. Interestingly, there is another Yaradi, a huge elephant-like monster called Nuti, which is almost certainly based upon the mammoth. In his ethnographic reconstruction of the Casca Indians, John Honigman related an old Casca legend featuring one of these creatures.
I mean, some of those things, especially like up north in Canada, probably didn't
along
go
with the
extinct
concept
a
of
lot
the
later.
Nuti in general, seems to imply a strong cultural recollection of living mammoths.
Yeah.
In other words, the evidence suggests that the Dene, or perhaps their nomadic ancestors, lived alongside mammoths and dramatized their interactions with them in their oral history. However, this is not the only way in which pre-contact Dene might have developed the notion of giant elephantine monsters. On the southern bank of the Yukon River, about 30 miles downstream from the mouth of the Tanana, is a considerable deposit of petrified mammoth bones, buried long ago when a section of the riverbank caved in.
Have you watched Ancient Apocalypse yet?
I've not.
The local Tanana Indians refer to this place as Na Redinilna Ketlana, or the cut bank of the Spirit Land.
What thing is it about? I remember you mentioning to me before.
It's on Netflix. It talks about how at least he theorizes that there was a civilization about 12,000 years ago that was wiped out by the climate change during the Younger Dryad.
Oh, okay. I couldn't.
It's really interesting.
Yeah, that is neat.
Believing that disembodied human souls
I'm sure there's been a lot of
on their way to Na
Radinilna,
the transitional paradise that they dwell in before being reincarnated,
even ancient
and
ones,
that the
like
fossils on the riverbank are the bones of their giant prey, leavings from their ghostly journey.
Deep time is definitely a very interesting concept.
In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, frontiersmen returned from the wilderness of Alaska, Yukon, and the Northwest Territories with tales of mammoths and mastodons that still inhabited the most desolate reaches of the Northland. Some of these tales found their way into newspapers and magazines, and a few of these made it into Ed Farrell's book, Strange Stories of Alaska and the Yukon.
That fucking cover.
Farrell began his chapter on relict mammoths with an article first published on May 5th, 1889, in the Philadelphia Press.
Oh boy.
In this article, the writer, a fur trader named Cola F. Fowler, described a story that he heard in 1887. That summer, Fowler left Kodiak Island, Alaska, and traveled to the headwaters of the Snake River, a waterway which empties into the Bering Strait at Nome, Alaska. There, he met with the chief of a local Inuit band, and proceeded to inspect some of the ivory tusks that the natives had collected in the wilderness. I subjected the ivory to a rigid inspection, Fowler wrote, and upon 2 of the largest tusks, I found fresh blood traces and decomposed flesh, unquote. After the trader pointed this out to the chief, the Inuit informed him that, 3 months earlier, he and a handful of young men had encountered a small mammoth herd about 50 miles north of their present location, and had managed to kill an old bull and a cow with their large caliber muskets. At Fowler's insistence, the Inuit drew his impression of the creature on the soft clay of the riverbank using a stick. The animal, which, he maintained, made loud, shrill, trumpet-like calls, resembled a woolly mammoth, albeit with smaller ears, bigger eyes, and a longer, more slender trunk. Interestingly, the creature had 4 4-foot tusks, in addition to 2 curved 15-footers.
Cthulhu.
In a commentary
mammoth.
at the end of the article, Farrell observed that the monster that the Inuit drew is consistent in appearance with a eubladon, or 4-tusker, an ancient relative of the woolly mammoth, which lived during the Miocene epoch, and which was unknown to science at that time. Farrell included several more stories of living subarctic mammoths in his book, including a story in which a man named Dr. J.P. Frizzle found fresh mammoth tracks in the snow of Willamette Island, one of the Aleutian Islands situated off the Pacific coast of Alaska, in 1903. The account of a Tahltan hunter's 1892 brush with a woolly mammoth in the valley of the Stickeen River, and an incredible tale, later proven to be a hoax, describing a successful mammoth hunt in the Alaskan wilderness in the early 1890s.
Okay.
So sounds
Many old magazine and newspaper articles maintain that some of the moose that live in the Nahanni Valley are twice as big as elsewhere.
That's a big-ass moose.
In the early 1970s, An RCMP officer turned television host named Tommy Tompkins
caught
one of these legendary creatures on film and showcased it in an episode of his TV show This Land.
Oh yes, I'm Steve Wayne, John's brother.
Tompkins estimated that the antlers that this massive bull sported were a whopping 12 feet from end to end, double the antler spread of the average moose. When considered alongside some of the theories purported to explain other faunal freaks reported in the area, the legend of the giant moose of the Nahani evokes the Irish elk, an old world cervid which lived during the Pleistocene epoch,
that's bigger than the mammoth.
The largest
that is
ever
fucking
lived.
look at those.
In addition to giant
ridiculous.
moose, there have been many reports of colossal grizzly bears in the Nahani Valley.
A small-faced bear.
In Dangerous River, for example, Raymond Patterson described seeing, quote, a very large grizzly in Deadman Valley, unquote, which Gordon Matthews named Slim Jim.
Slim Jim.
This creature was said to be, quote, enormous as a boxcar and as timid as a deer, unquote.
You leave Mr. Johnson
Both
out
Wes
of it.
Krause
He
and
just
Nazar
started in
Zinchuk,
Vietnam.
in their Parks Canada interviews, spoke of giant grizzlies in the Nahani.
Yeah, right now.
Krause recalled a monster grizzly, quote, the size of a 2-year-old moose, unquote, that obliterated a trail near Bennett Creek. Zinchuk, on the other hand, described coming across a 12-foot-tall grizzly in the wilderness.
Look at it.
According to the Alaska Department of Fish and Game, Kodiak bears, the largest subspecies of grizzly bear, seldom exceed a height of 10 feet.
That's still fucking huge.
In Sir Ranulph Fiennes' book,
gigantic.
The Headless Valley, an oblate missionary named Father Mary recalled finding grizzly paw prints in the snow, which dwarfed the tracks that he made with his size 11 overshoes.
And way more pissed off
Similarly,
than grizzlies.
Frank Graves, in a letter to Ivan Sanderson, described coming across a real horror during his Nahani Valley excursion in 1965. These were definitely bear tracks, he wrote, but if I told you their size, and I measured them with my collecting
I didn't even have to know
who posted it to
think it was pork.
They were bear tracks, all right, and the Indian said that they were made by giant brown bears, that, as far as I could make out from his pacing things off between the trees, would make any Kodiak brown look like a black bear cub, unquote.
Oh, wow.
Oh, shit.
One man to see one of these Bruin behemoths with his own eyes was adventure writer D.H. Costa,
why not with his own
who
camera?
paddled the South Nahani with his 12-year-old stepson Mark in the 1970s.
Still, either way, is that how you say?
In his 2015 book, Canoe in the Nahani, Costa described how he and his stepson capsized their canoe on the Cache Rapids just upstream from the first canyon. Mark managed to pull himself up into a rock ledge alongside the river, while Costa crawled onto a gravel bar downstream. That night, while trying to keep warm on the gravel bar, Coaster saw a massive grizzly emerge from the forest on the other side of the river, wade through the current to an island in the middle of a South Nahani, and set about demolishing the trees there.
Oh?
He was the size of an Abrams tank, Coaster maintained, bigger even than any polar or Kodiak. He must have stood 12 feet tall,
that's a
taller than the
bear.
trees he was busy swatting down,
That is a normal
and
bear.
massive. His arms were the size of tree trunks,
where's
and his paws
Abrams
twice as
bear?
big, unquote.
It's still out there in the Yukon. We gotta find it.
These enormous Nahani grizzlies, in the context of the other giant animals detailed in this chapter.
Oh my god, look at that thing.
Yeah, that is
or
a
the
small-faced
short-faced
bear.
One of the largest land-dwelling mammals
yeah, that's what I was
to
talking
ever
about.
live.
Imagine seeing that motherfucker.
This monstrous animal, believed to have disappeared from North America about 11,000 years ago, could reach a height of 12 feet.
Fuck off.
Interestingly, in his book, The Beast That Hides from Man, British cryptozoologist Dr. Carl Schuker mentioned that extremely large snow-white bears, known to local Chukchi hunters as Irkutsk, have been reported in Russia's Kamchatka Peninsula, sandwiched between the Sea of Okhotsk and the Bering Sea, and that Russian zoologist Professor Nikola Vereshchagin opined that they might be modern-day representatives of the short-faced bear.
Damn. Fuck that.
In his letter to Ivan Sanderson, the anonymous letter writer mentioned in the previous chapter learned from his Dene informant, Gugo, that the Wahila was, quote, almost invincible, but he has one enemy. Now hang on to your hat. That enemy is a lion.
A lion?
I thought he meant puma, which I wouldn't have believed anyway. But no, he meant a lion.
Oh, the American lion,
The lion is itself a giant, at least as big as the bloody dog, and apparently afraid of nothing. Very hairy, with a large woolly mane extending nearly all over its body. The lions kill everything when in the mood, including the bears, moose, and what would appear to be mammoths, the latter being described as creatures bigger than all the others, with long noses.
Mooses.
I assume that this was what he meant by the description, as Gugo didn't have a name for it, and the interpreters seemed rather amazed. In keeping with the pattern we have been following in this chapter, This enormous lion of the Nahanni Valley conjures up images of not only the famous Smilodon or saber-toothed tiger, but also the North American cave lion.
Yeah, the cave lion was huge. So here's the thing, I know I've been pausing a lot, but guess what? Technically, saber-toothed tigers were not cats. They were marsupials, actually. Yeah, they were marsupials. Yeah, I know.
That's wild.
It is.
An extinct subspecies of lion that lived in North America during the
cave lions were
epoch.
actual felinids.
The North American cave lion is believed to have measured 1.6 to 2.5 meters. That's 5 feet 3 inches to 8 feet 2 inches from nose to the base of its tail. With a shoulder height of 1.2 meters, or 3 feet 11 inches, it is believed to be one of the largest felines to ever live.
Yup.
That's still fucking wild.
Thanks for watching.
Well, you're welcome.
If you enjoyed this video and would like to help support this channel, please check out my book, Legends of the Nahanni Valley, which you can find by clicking the link in the description.
Greatest mysteries.
Spooky lions.
Spooky. Alright. Moving on. We got this. The Partridge Creek Monster. Get back to it. Modern day dinosaur sighting.
For about 165 million years, the dinosaurs ruled the planet. During this long period, hundreds of different kinds of dinosaurs evolved. Then quite suddenly, around 66 million years ago, they vanished. There are no more fossils of dinosaurs after the end of the Cretaceous period. Not only did the dinosaurs
mass extinction
die out,
event?
so
Those
did the
don't happen on
reptiles,
this planet.
and a huge number of other land animals and plants.
Mainstream archaeologists will call you crazy.
The most common theory for the demise of the dinosaurs is that a large asteroid struck in Mexico.
God decided to hit a home run that day.
Crater.
And everything died.
Together, around 65 to 70% of life on Earth vanished forever. But even with this knowledge, all over the world came to see living dinosaurs.
I do.
The Partridge Creek beast is said to be a living Ceratosaurus.
Because I told him he couldn't make anything better.
Yukon Territory, Canada.
Well, you're the problem then.
This creature terrorized local moose and reindeer herds with its powerful muscular build and ferocious mouth. This creature is said to be between 40 and 50 feet long, be 40 tons in weight, solid black in color, be
I like how it's got like ghost breath.
A single horn on its snout.
Yes.
It does have a single horn.
And have an appetite for large mammals. Its footprints were 5 feet long and 2 feet and 6 inches wide with claws 1 foot long. Its tail impression was 10 feet long and 16 inches wide. It resembles Ceratosaurus and other theropods. An indication of a hoax is that dinosaurs did not drag their tail on the ground, and held it horizontal to the ground. Though some have said it could be possible for this species of dinosaur to go from a normal
I love how only his legs are fucking hairy.
Yeah.
Leaning back on its tail.
Nothing else is hairy.
Got hairy thighs.
The creature is known from 2
hairy
sightings in the 20th
thighs. That sounds
century.
really creepy.
That does sound really
James
fucking
Lewis
creepy.
Butler and Tom Limore were hunting moose near Clear Creek, when the animals they were stalking burst away in a sudden rapid fright after having been extremely quiet. They discovered the tracks of a giant animal. They followed it for a while, until the tracks disappeared into a deep rocky
Why does it look like an
gorge.
iguana?
They later met some men and 5 Indians who agreed to search for the monster. They were initially unsuccessful, but eventually encountered it near the campsite. They observed it for 10 minutes and had a very clear look at it. In 1907, it's claimed the creature was spotted in the same area. It carried a deceased reindeer in its gaping jaws and left tracks identical to the tracks recorded 4 years earlier. As these are the only sightings and they took place more than a century ago, we may never know what these men encountered.
We may never know.
All of them
we
claim
may
it was
never
a
know. It's definitely not horseshit.
Nope.
The beast they saw.
It's real.
If it is, and the creature
or at least
its remains could be found.
Is it killing a moose? What
its
is that?
existence might offer solid proof that dinosaurs were warm-blooded.
Looks like a
because a
bullshit
large reptile
cockatrice
would have little
I don't
hope of
know what the hell
survival
I'm
in the
looking
northern
at.
climate
What's
of
eating?
the
I
Yukon.
can't tell.
So what do you think these men saw?
That's a deer?
I guess
I'm
it's a
interested
deer.
To hear your theory, so don't forget to leave
Looks
a comment.
weird though. Looks like an egg.
That is very weird.
Anyway, thank you
Thanks
for watching.
And don't forget to subscribe
for
more
watching.
countdown videos.
That's Mysterious Top 10s. Now we got back to this channel where it talks all about
For
it.
as long as we have been aware of their existence, people all
By
over the
his shell,
world
I
have
mean
displayed an intense
Emerson
fascination
Peters.
with dinosaurs. Discoveries of their fossilized remains likely help inspire the legend of the dragon, the monstrous, sometimes winged reptile which features in traditional folklore
How do you know
from
they're
China
not dragons?
to Mexico. The wild
What are you,
popularity
racist
of the
against-
Jurassic Park franchise
against
demonstrates our
dragons?
enduring
Jurassic
interest in these
Park.
kings of the Mesozoic. and our deep, primitive gratitude that they no longer walk the earth.
Thank God we have that deep,
and many
gratitude.
Young boys and girls go through
Speak
a
for
dinosaur
yourself,
phase,
nerd.
characterized by an all-consuming obsession with these primordial monsters. The academic community in North America and Europe went through its own dino phase in the mid to late 19th century, after English paleontologist Sir Richard Owen in 1942 first used the Greco-Latin compound word Dinosaurus, or terrible lizard, as a denotation for the ancient reptiles whose petrified skeletons were being unearthed in England, Holland, and Germany.
Holland.
Victorian dinosaur mania veritably exploded a decade later when Owen commissioned British sculptor Benjamin Waterhouse Hawkins with creating life-size sculptures of 33 dinosaurs, which were based upon Owen's interpretations of the handful of fossils that had been unearthed at that time. The sculptures were completed in 1854 and were unveiled with great pomp and ceremony during the grand opening of a prehistoric-themed park constructed outside the Crystal Palace. The Crystal Palace being a portable glass and iron building which had housed London's great exhibition, the First World Fair, back in 1851.
Predator on this planet.
Catalyzed by the popularity of the Crystal Palace dinosaurs, museums across Great Britain and the United States raced to populate their display rooms with the largest and most impressive dinosaur skeletons money could buy, which they purchased from independent and fiercely competitive paleontologists. Hand in hand with the dinomania of Western academia came fictional tales of lost worlds, inhabited by the primeval monsters that had inflamed Victorian imagination.
Oh my god, it's a platypus.
Dude, the dinosaur's kicking him in the dick!
French novelist Jules Verne published Journey to the Center of the Earth, a French literary classic in which an eccentric German scientist and his nephew discover a subterranean ocean deep beneath Iceland, teeming with aquatic dinosaurs.
Things that really aren't dinosaurs.
In 1888, Canadian writer James DeMille's fantasy romance, A Strange Manuscript Found in a Copper Cylinder, was published posthumously in serial format in Harper's Weekly magazine.
I'm not saying
telling
they're not
the story
cool.
of a thermally heated,
dinosaurs.
semi-tropical oasis in Antarctica, where dinosaurs roam.
Why does it look like that?
In 1898, English novelist C.J. Cutliff Hine published The Lizard, a short story about an English gentleman who discovered and battled a carnivorous dinosaur in a cave near the English village of Kettlewell. The following year, American writer Warden Allen Curtis's science fiction short story, The Monster of Lake Lemaitre, was published in the September issue of Pearson's magazine. Curtis's piece is written as the lost diary of a physician who discovered a living plesiosaur in a mountain lake in Wyoming, into the skull of which he transplanted the brain of his dying teenage companion. And in 1912, British author Sir Arthur Conan Doyle published a science fiction novel, The Lost World, in which an ambitious young reporter accompanies an indomitable professor on an expedition to a remote stretch of South American jungle, which supports a robust population of pterodactyls. While dinosaur mania took Victorian culture by storm, a contemporaneous but unrelated furor gripped the Western mercantile world. As a consequence of the Industrial Revolution and the political upheavals that characterized the Age of Revolution, a wealthy upper-middle class composed of industrialists, doctors, lawyers, bankers, military officers, and other white-collar professionals grew throughout the 19th century. Many members of this burgeoning social strata flaunted their new wealth and standing by furnishing their drawing rooms with pianos, or pianofortes as they were known at the time, luxuries which were once affordable only to the aristocracy. It became fashionable for middle-class women and girls to study piano performance, an avocation redolent of high status and good breeding. And soon pianos were also making their way into the bedrooms of middle-class ladies throughout the Western world.
Why would you
want a piano in your bedroom? The 52 white keys adorning every piano in the Victorian era were covered with veneers of ivory, and in order to supply that ivory, a brisk trade in elephant tusks flourished in West and East Africa.
It's totally not horse shit.
The rising demand for ivory was concurrent with a decreased demand for fur, as men throughout the Western world began to prefer silk top hats to the beaver felt headgear affected by their fathers and grandfathers.
Is he also a lord or lady? Does he have an established title?
Some far-sighted fur traders throughout North America, Alaska, and Siberia, eager to adapt to the changes affecting the Victorian market, began to purchase the tusks of woolly mammoths from the natives who had once brought them furs. Those ancient ivory appendages being surprisingly common in the North Country, ensconced in the ever-eroding clay of riverbanks across the subarctic. Throughout the course of their boreal wanderings, many of the ivory prospectors who hunted for these antediluvian relics came across partially preserved mammoth carcasses mummified by the permafrost. In 1806, for example, zoologist M.F. Adams of the Russian Academy of Sciences learned that the body of a frozen mammoth had been discovered by Yakutian hunters on the banks of the Lena River in Siberia, with one eye still in its socket and its brain still in its skull.
Oh god.
Despite that much of the mammoth's flesh was subsequently devoured by wild wolves and hungry Yakutian sled dogs, Adams managed to secure a portion of the animal's hide, which was so heavy that 10 strong men were needed to drag it to their boat on the riverbank. In 1848, a Russian Orthodox missionary named Kitrovo allegedly discovered the frozen body of a mammoth on the banks of the Kolyma River in northeastern Siberia, with food still in its stomach and twigs still in its mouth.
Oh, okay.
And in 1898, a prospector named Angus Graham reputedly came across the remains of a mammoth encased in ice, somewhere in Yukon Territory, which disintegrated when it was exposed to the air.
Well, duh.
In the late 1800s, prospectors, fur traders, and ivory hunters began returning from the wilderness of northern Canada and Alaska with tales of living mammoths. In the May 5th, 1889 issue of the Philadelphia Press, for example, a fur trader named Cola F. Fowler described his 1887 purchase of what appeared to be a fresh mammoth tusk from a native chief.
Wow.
When questioned, the chief informed him that he and his band had encountered a small mammoth herd north of Nome, Alaska, and that some of his hunters killed an old bull and a cow with their large caliber muskets. The March 4th, 1893 issue of the Sitka-based newspaper The Alaska contained an article describing a Talton hunter's recent brush with a woolly mammoth in the valley of the Stikine River in northwest British Columbia.
The Stinky River?
And an article in the October 1899 issue of McClure's magazine told a fantastic tale, which was later proven to be a hoax.
Oh no, you don't say.
Oh no, in the early 1890s in the Alaskan wilderness.
You mean people lie?
People lie?
On April 15th, 1908, an incredible article entitled Le Monstre de Partridge Creek, or The Monster of Partridge Creek, appeared in the French popular science magazine Je sais tout.
Oh god, more French.
Later that year, an English translation of the same piece appeared in the July 1908 edition of the Strand magazine, a British publication which printed both factual articles and fictional stories.
Well, that's good.
As a literary phenomenon, The Monster of Partridge Creek was the perfect marriage of the two different genres of literature above described, namely fictional tales of living dinosaurs, and ostensibly non-fictional accounts of prehistoric monsters in the North Country.
Sure.
Specifically, the piece describes an alleged encounter with a dinosaur in Canada's Yukon Territory.
Here we go.
The Monster of Partridge Creek was written by a Frenchman named Georges Dupuy, whom Wikipedia identifies as 50-year-old Dr. Georges-Marie Dupuy, a hard-headed Parisian physician and anatomical illustrator, respected in the medical community for his contributions to the field of combat surgery. In fact, the author of the piece was almost certainly the doctor's contemporaneous namesake and fellow Parisian, a 34-year-old journalist, writer, and translator who regularly contributed to the French sporting magazine L'Auto. In addition to writing articles on boxers, sprinters, and other athletes for the aforementioned publication, Georges Dupuy wrote at least one other short story for Je sais tout, which is set in Canada's Yukon Territory.
Wait, the Yukon's Canada?
Dupuy was a stampeder who had participated in the Klondike Gold Rush of 1897. In a saloon in Dawson City, the heart of Klondike country, he became acquainted with fellow writer Jack London, author of the American literary classics White Fang and The Call of the Wild. Like London, Dupuy spent much of his time in Dawson, plying old sourdoughs for tales of their backcountry adventures. Dupuy made several trips from Paris to Yukon and Alaska in the decade following his prospecting days. On one such foray, which he undertook as a correspondent for L'Auto, he traveled to Nome, Alaska, to report on the condition of the Bering Strait sea ice, over which some quixotic industrialists hope to build a highway, the most difficult stretch of a hypothetical thoroughfare connecting New York with Moscow.
I know, trolls do exist.
Just before twilight, he reported, some 2 miles or less distant, we could see the little blue waves out there in the Bering Sea.
I don't think
Not once did it freeze more than 5 miles out at Nome, but there are periods when the strait freezes, unquote.
Unquote.
I mean, why would a European lie to me?
In 1904, Jack London hired Dupuy to translate his short story anthology, The Faith of Men and Other Stories, into French.
He also said he needed money to fight Russia, and that sounded legit.
George Platt Brett Sr., in which he attempted to convince Brett that Dupuy was the man for the job. London wrote, quote, Mr. Georges Dupuis is a Frenchman, an artist, a journalist, and a man who knows Alaska better than I do. He has lived the life. I call him an artist, and by the word I mean not painter, but temperament. He sees.
Those kind of people.
From my talks with him, I see that he has the romance, the fire, the color, the idiom of the land, unquote.
The idiom of the land.
That's right.
Despite London's praise for the keenness of his mind's eye, Dupuis was quick to assure his readers that the events described in The Monster of Partridge Creek were witnessed by the physical eyes in his head. The story which follows is in no sense a romance, he began. I wish, in the first place, to ask the readers of the following narrative to believe that I am in no way attempting to impose upon their credulity.
Believe me, trust me.
Concerning the amazing spectacle I am about to describe, I report nothing but plain facts, however astounding and apparently incredible they may seem at first glance, precisely as they appeared to my own eyes, unquote. Dupuis went on to explain how, in the early 1900s, one of his favorite Yukon haunts was a place called McQuestion Post.
Okay.
Although a trading post of that name once existed at the confluence of the Stewart and Yukon rivers, Dupuis hints in his story that the McQuestion Post to which he referred was the Northwest Mounted Police Station which lay at the southern shores of the Stewart River, opposite the mouth of McQuestion Creek, about 75 kilometers or 47 miles west of the town of Mayo, and 106 kilometers or 66 miles southeast of Dawson. Dupuis' friend, a French-Canadian Jesuit missionary named Father Pierre Lavagnew, who tended to the spiritual needs of a nearby band of Clayoquot Indians, owned a cabin at McQuestion Post, which Dupuis visited every time he was in the area.
Ketchup, Kentucky.
One morning in the early 1900s, the story goes, Dupuis was enjoying a cup of coffee on the veranda of Father Lavagnew's cabin when he heard a whistle from the direction of the Stewart River.
Horseradish, New Hampshire.
The Frenchman glanced up from his mug and was delighted to see his friend James Lewis Butler kneeling in a bark canoe with an Indian at his fore and rear. The three men paddled over to the shore. Butler was a San Francisco banker who had left California in 1897 to try his luck in the Klondike.
A banker, you say?
Dupuis knew that Butler had spent the past few months prospecting in the wild country north of the Stewart River,
looking for gold,
and was eager to learn whether he had met with any success.
Wait, hold on. A banker who wanted
Butler's
more
greatest
money?
discovery, Dupuis soon learned, had nothing to do with gold dust or nuggets. Just 2 days earlier, the banker had been making his way overland towards the Stewart River when he came upon a cabin belonging to a man named Grant, who invited him to stay the night. The following morning, Grant asked Butler if he would like to accompany him and two companions on a moose hunt. Butler agreed, and the four men headed to Partridge Creek, a tributary of the Stewart, which empties into the latter about 6 kilometers downstream from the mouth of the McQuestion River. The hunters made their way up a hill overlooking a mineral lick off Partridge Creek, where moose and caribou often came to taste the salt. Sure enough, they spied 3 enormous moose grazing in the valley below. Before any of the hunters could get off a shot, one of the animals, a young bull, let out a sharp bellow and crashed into the southerly bush, followed closely by his mates.
That is a big-ass animal.
We decided to approach the spot where the animals had taken fright so suddenly, Butler told Dupuis.
And the vehicles
quote, arriving at the moose lick,
I thought hitting a deer was bad, but fuck that.
We saw in the mud, and almost on a level with the water of the lick, the fresh imprint of a body of a monstrous animal.
Oh shit.
Its belly had made an impression in the slime more than 2 feet deep, 30 feet long, and 12 feet wide. 4 gigantic paws, also deeply impressed, had left at the end of each imprint, and a little to the side, footprints 5 feet long by 2.5 feet wide, the claws being more than a foot long, the sharp points of which had buried themselves deeply in the mud. There was also the print, apparently, of a heavy tail, 10 feet long and 16 inches wide at the point, unquote. In the French-language version of the story, Butler claimed that he and his companions found an enormous pile of strange greenish manure, which was clearly produced by some massive carnivorous animal, lying in the middle of the trail.
Dino dung.
This ominous excrement terrified the Indians. Butler and his companions followed the mysterious tracks for about 5 or 6 miles, along the wooded banks of Partridge Creek, until the coulee sharpened into a steep gulch. There, the tracks abruptly ended, quote, as if by enchantment, unquote. At the conclusion of Butler's incredible tale, Dupuis suggested that the two of them assemble a hunting party and locate the mysterious creature that had made the tracks. By evening, Father Pierre Lavagnew, a local miner named Tom Leemore, who was working a claim on the McQuestion River, and 5 Cleacuck Indians agreed to accompany Butler and Dupuy on their excursion. The Mounties who manned McQuestion Post, and a courier who was staying in the area, both of whom were skeptical of Butler's story, decided to remain behind with Butler's 2 Indian guides. Early the following morning, at about 5 o'clock, the hunters paddled across the Stewart River in canoes and headed into the forest. They searched for signs of their mysterious quarry all day, slogging through brush and muskeg as they explored both Partridge Creek and the easterly McQuestion River, making their way north towards their headwaters in a nameless range of snow-capped mountains, but to no avail. The elusive creature was nowhere to be seen.
Nowhere.
That evening, the 9 companions set up camp at the crest of a cliff overlooking Partridge Creek and got a fire going. As they were boiling a pot of tea, the sound of falling stones could be heard in the ravine below. Before any of the men could investigate the commotion, a primeval roar ripped through the valley.
Wow, Porky.
Not a primeval
Gripping their
roar.
rifles with trembling hands, Dupuy and his companions crawled over to the edge of the cliff and peered into the ravine.
Across
the narrow valley, on the opposite side of Partridge Creek, an enormous grayish-black creature was attempting to ascend the opposite slope. As it struggled to gain purchase on the rocky hillside with its clawed feet, it sent boulders crashing into the valley below.
That's right.
Dupuy estimated that the monster measured 50 feet from its nose to the end of its tail, and that the crest of its spine stood 18 feet above the ground. Its snout was, quote, surmounted by a horn
how it has
of that of a
here we
rhinoceros,
go. Look at this.
while its hide was like that of a wild boar, garnished with thick bristles.
Yes,
Unquote.
sir. Carnosaur
Red
in the
slaver
Arctic.
dripped from its jaws. The monster had apparently just finished its dinner.
Oh god, look at its eyes.
In the English version of the tale, Father Lavenu declared that the creature must be a dinosaur.
Must be.
In the French version, the Jesuit,
just
through
Porky's
chattering
main
teeth,
call.
identified the monster as a Ceratosaurus, a dinosaur on which American paleontologist Othniel Charles Marsh had written extensively throughout the 1880s and 90s. The hunters watched the strange animal for a full 10 minutes,
that thing looks like someone's
transfixed
Italian
to the spot
uncle.
by both fear and fascination.
Look at the hair on that fucker.
We were in full possession of our senses, Dupuy wrote. There was not, and never will be, in our minds the least doubt as to the reality of what we saw. It was indeed a living creature,
Porky.
and not an illusion, which we had before
It's totally real.
Unquote.
Totally real.
Finally, when the creature recognized the futility of its exercise, it
Wow.
quit the slopes and bounded into the valley of Partridge Creek on 2 legs,
Get the fuck out of
moving with
Dodge.
astonishing agility. Following their terrifying encounter, Dupuy and Butler made a trip to Dawson City, where they entreated the Commissioner of Yukon Territory for mules and 50 armed men with which to destroy the monster of Partridge Creek.
Hell yeah.
Here my story ends, Dupuy wrote. For a month, we were the laughingstock of the Golden City.
Everyone was laughing
and the
at
Dawson
you. They're all
Daily
gonna laugh
Nugget
at
published
you.
an article about me, which was at the same time flattering and satirical, entitled A Rival of Poe, unquote.
Aww.
Near the beginning of the article, Georges Dupuy reproduced the contents of a letter that he claimed to have received from his friend, Father Lavenu, which was written on New Year's Day, 1908. After expressing his, quote, affectionate wishes for Dupuy's health and happiness, unquote, and informing Dupuy of the death of John Spitz, the mail carrier for the Duncan district northeast of Mayo, the priest disclosed that on New Year's Eve, just a week prior, he and 10 members of his native congregation had seen the monster of Partridge Creek a second time, racing over the frozen surface of the creek with the caribou clamped between its jaws. His fur was covered with hoarfrost, he wrote, and his little eyes gleamed like fire in the twilight, unquote. The priest estimated that the animal ran at a speed exceeding 10 miles an hour, and noted that the temperature at the time of the sighting was 45 degrees below zero. That's minus 49 degrees Fahrenheit. Accompanied by a local Indian chief and 2 of his sons, Father Lavenu followed the animal's steadily fading tracks 2 miles to the Stewart River, where the trail finally disappeared under a blanket of freshly fallen snow.
Again, just like, hello, yes, I'm the hairy pants dinosaur.
Many of those who have commented upon the monster of Partridge Creek believe that it was intended as a work of fiction.
Weird.
In his 2017 article, A Brief History of Cowboys and Dinosaurs, American comic book artist Stephen R. Bissett described the story as, quote, one slice of great northern Yukon Territory fiction. Well, I'm convinced it's fiction, which has become enshrined as the real thing by certain cryptozoology circles, unquote. American cryptozoologist Lauren Coleman echoed Bissett's statement in a May 27th, 2020 Twitter post, referring to the piece as, quote, pure #cryptofiction set in Canada, unquote. Regardless of whether or not the story itself is true, the monster of Partridge Creek was clearly presented as a non-fictional account of an actual dinosaur sighting in the Yukon.
Oh no.
In the Strand magazine, it is sandwiched between various non-fictional pieces, such as 34-year-old Winston Churchill's account of his parliamentary service in Uganda, and a variety of obviously fictional short stories, like a supernatural mystery by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle involving an overworked accountant and a haunted Scottish mirror.
Oh God, no.
The magazine's editor firmly placed Dupuis' story in the non-fiction camp by giving it the headline, Stories Strange and True. Then, as if to dispel any remaining doubt as to its veracity, he added a short preamble, a direct translation of its French counterpart in Je sais tout, in which he declared that the story's author is, quote, a well-known French writer and traveler, whose good faith is beyond question, and who takes full responsibility for his narrative, which, it may be noted, however remarkable, is in no way contradicted by known scientific facts, unquote.
It's facts. They don't care
Subsequent
about your
to its debut in the Strand magazine and Je sais tout, The Monster of Partridge Creek was republished in newspapers throughout North America. The verbiage of these reprints often deviated slightly from the original, undergoing a subtle kind of rewording to which non-fictional news articles are often subjected, but to which fictional pieces are invariably immune. Some articles declared that Tom Lemore had taken 3 photographs of the creature during the encounter which Dupuis described.
Declared to be equal the size
Galvanized
of 10
by the
elephants.
sensational articles, 29-year-old Hugh Grosvenor, the wealthy Duke of Westminster, reportedly planned a hunting trip in Yukon Territory for the express purpose of bagging the monster of Partridge Creek.
I wanted to find it.
In preparation for his upcoming adventure, the Duke allegedly chartered a German steamer at Hamburg and fitted it with a huge steel cage in which the beast was to be contained.
I will bring this home
His plans
to
were
Deutschland.
ultimately foiled in 1914, when the Great War broke out in the Old World. The Duke volunteered for combat duty and served with distinction in a prototypical armored car squadron on the front lines in Egypt.
Wow.
By the time the war was over, he had apparently forgotten about his intended Yukon expedition, or had a change of heart or circumstance, and never rescheduled his trip to Stewart River country.
Wow.
Although the monster of Partridge Creek was certainly presented and initially received by many as a true story, its context in literary history suggests that it was very possibly fictional in nature.
Oh, no kidding.
Despite that, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's novel, The Lost World, had not yet been published at the time the story was penned. Inspiration for a tale of prehistoric survivors was in ample supply in 1908.
Yes.
Verne, DeMille, Hine, and Curtis had already introduced living dinosaur fiction to the reading public, and American newspapers abounded with tales of mammoths and mastodons that roamed the frozen wastes of the subarctic. Perhaps most tellingly, Jack London's anthology, The Faith of Men, which Dupuis translated into French in 1904, included a tale entitled A Relic of the Pliocene. In this short story, the narrator encounters a lonely frontiersman deep in the subarctic bush, who tells him a campfire story about a live woolly mammoth, perhaps the last of its kind on Earth, which he encountered in a remote valley in what is presumably the Mackenzie Mountains of Canada's Northwest Territories.
Okay.
When the monster broke his gun and killed his dog, the frontiersman made it his mission to slaughter it.
I don't care
he
if it's the last
accomplished this
one, I'm
feat
gonna
through persistence
fucking kill it
hunting,
now. It's
and
personal.
celebrated his victory by crafting a pair of
personal.
mucklucks from the mammoth's hide.
Mucklucks?
If the monster of Partridge
Don't know what
Creek
that is, but he
indeed
sounds
constitutes
angry.
a piece of northwestern fiction, it
I
was
wanna
not
make some
Georges
mucklucks.
Dupuis' first foray into the genre. 2 years earlier, he wrote a French-language story entitled Un drame à Klondike, or A Drama in the Klondike, which was published in the February 15, 1906 issue of Je sais tout. This story tells of a French-Canadian prospector who murdered 2 of his fellow countrymen in the subarctic for their gold, only to be driven away from his prize by his victim's vengeful sled dogs.
Mudlucks or boots? Okay.
Its context in literary history is not the only indication that the monster of Partridge Creek might be a fictional creation. In the very first paragraph, Dupuis refers to the Indians of the Stewart River as members of the Clayoquot tribe.
Clayoquot?
In his French-language version, he implies that the Clayoquots comprise a band of Snow Indians, the Snow Indians perhaps being a general denotation for the Dene.
Okay.
In fact, the natives of Stewart River country are members of the Northern Shoshone First Nation, no bands of which go by a name bearing any resemblance to the word Clayoquot.
Okay.
The Koyukuk Indians, on the other hand, whose name the word Clayoquot strongly evokes, are members of a subdivision of the Koyukon Nation, whose historical homeland lies in central Alaska, far from the Stewart River. Dupuy's inclusion of the Clayoquot Indians in his narrative, considering his intimate familiarity with the North Country, almost seems to be a subtle wink to his sourdough friends, to whom such an error, unnoticed by the vast majority of readers, might seem glaringly obvious. Dupuy's friend Jack London inserted a similar inside joke into his novel The Call of the Wild.
They're doing trolling together,
and completely fictitious.
We do a little trolling here.
Do a little literary trolling.
Similar to the Clayoquot Indians, this author has failed to find any references to Father Pierre Lavenue, James Lewis Butler, and Tom Lemore in any books, academic articles, newspapers, or online posts, aside from those related to Dupuy's story.
Do a little literary
In a commentary on the monster of Partridge Creek, published in the September 1908 issue of the Knowledge and Illustrated Scientific News, English naturalist Richard Lydekker wrote, quote, that a living representative of the carnivorous dinosaurs of a secondary epoch should be living in the frozen north of Alaska seems incredible to every scientific mind. The prima facie presumption is that larger dinosaurs were inhabitants of warm rather than of Arctic zones, unquote.
Yeah, they're from
British
the Triassic,
cryptozoologist Carl Schuker, who was perhaps the first in his field to critique the story,
Jeff Bezos
expressed a similar opinion in his 1995 book, In Search of Prehistoric Survivors, writing, quote, the monster of Partridge Creek merits a prominent place among the Dubatanda of cryptozoology. Bearing in mind that the existence of such an animal calls for our belief in the post-Cretaceous persistence of an endothermic hairy dinosaur in what must surely be the last compatible habitat for any type of large reptile living today, its lack of cryptozoological credibility should hardly come as a great surprise, unquote. Conversely, British journalist and Fortean writer Harold T. Wilkins, in his 1952 book Secret Cities of Old South America, argued that Dupuy's story and the concept of relict Arctic dinosaurs in general might not be as far-fetched as most readers might reflexively assume. Paleontologists, he wrote, tell us that one of the principal reasons for the disappearance of dinosaurs and the monstrous reptilian of the great swamps and warm mosses of the hot Mesozoic age, life's long summer on the Earth, was the oncoming of the Ice Age. After recurring periods of cold and less warmth, they say, the monsters died out, leaving no descendants. Yes, doubtless that was so, but who may say whether or not a peculiar type of dinosaur, existing in the Mesozoic age, was able to adapt himself to changing climates and survive.
Well,
unquote.
I'd be scared.
Indeed, since the 1980s, paleontologists have discovered dinosaur fossils in both the Arctic and Antarctic circles, indicating that some dinosaurs were able to survive in colder temperatures than previously believed. The finds are coming fast and furious, wrote science writer Riley Black in a December 3rd, 2020 article for the Smithsonian Magazine.
No Fast
Why
and
were
Furious.
you doing Mexican hat dance for a second?
Because, no, we don't need any Vin Diesel in our dinosaur story.
No, we don't need no Diesel dinosaur.
Family
quote,
here.
A tiny jaw found in Alaska's ancient rock record, and written about in July, indicates that dinosaurs nested in these places and stayed year-round.
Okay.
The ongoing identification of new species, not found anywhere else, highlights how some dinosaurs adapted to the cold, unquote.
Homeless dinosaurs.
Similar to their modern avian counterparts, paleontologists hypothesize that these creatures acclimated to lower temperatures by growing fuzz or downy feathers, going into torpor in underground burrows, or annually migrating to warmer climes in autumn. One potential hole in Dupuy's story is the imprint the monster's tail purportedly left in the mineral lick, as described by James Butler. Some writers have interpreted this detail as an indication that the dinosaur dragged its tail when it walked.
That's all. It's that simple.
This interpretation is probably incorrect, considering that the tail mark is only mentioned in connection with the massive imprint of what was suspected to be the dinosaur's belly, which the creature presumably made while wading through the soft, deep mud of the mineral lick. If the mud reached the creature's belly, then it doubtless would have reached its tail as well, whether it was dragging or not.
We need to give them energy drinks.
The notion of a tail-dragging dinosaur accords perfectly with the mainstream Victorian and Edwardian perception of dinosaur biomechanics, which held that dinosaurs dragged their tails on the ground when they walked. In the 1970s, however, during a paleontological paradigm shift known as the Dinosaur Renaissance, American paleontologist Robert T. Backer proposed that theropods like Ceratosaurus were active creatures, which used their tails to balance themselves while they ran.
Yes.
The paleontological community generally concurred with Backer's revolutionary theory, and today, nearly every interpretation of bipedal dinosaurs, from museum skeletons to movie monsters, depict these ancient creatures with their tails in the air.
Monsters.
In recent years, theories on dinosaur locomotion have begun to come full circle, with the discovery of what have been interpreted as dinosaur tail drag marks. Clear indications that some dinosaurs did indeed drag their tails.
Yeah, maybe some drag their tails.
As Victorian scientists initially suspected.
That species.
In 1922, newspapers across North America reported that a family of carnivorous dinosaurs, resembling Ceratosauri, had been spotted in the Soviet Union's Kamchatka Peninsula.
And no one's gonna go check that.
Indigenous hunters allegedly discovered the mangled remains of a young Ceratosaurus in Russia's boreal wilderness, and brought one of its severed feet, which was the size of a man's head, back to civilization.
Oh yeah.
Some journalists who commented upon the story suggested that these alleged Russian dinosaurs might be kin to the monster of Partridge Creek, speculating that such creatures might cross the Bering Strait during especially severe winters, when Kamchatka and Chukotka were linked to Alaska by an unbroken stretch of ice.
Straits, though.
When a subsequent expedition in search of the Russian dinosaurs proved fruitless, some suggested that the prehistoric remnants abode within the Chersky Mountains, a range newly discovered in northeastern Siberia, between the Yana and Indigirka rivers. Throughout the 1930s, Canadian writer and former Hudson's Bay Company inspector Philip H. Gottsell wrote a number of articles in which he included a story that had been told to him by his friend Frank Beaton, the HBC's chief factor at Fort St. John, British Columbia.
About to go kill everything on this
Beaton had heard the story from a scientific party, whose members had heard it from one of their Indian guides, a Cree named Chakina, who had, in turn, heard the tale from his father. Sometime in the late 19th or early 20th century, he purportedly traveled to the Upper Liard River country, in what is now southeastern Yukon, where he fell in with a primitive tribe of Dene Indians. Around their fires, these Stone Age people had told of a medicine valley to the north, inhabited by monsters of fearful size and ferocity, unquote. One of the Cree's new Dene acquaintances produced a scrap of buckskin from his medicine bag, on which had been burned the image of one of these monsters.
In case you forgot about
that. Oh, this one is different.
And
this
eventually
bequeathed
this one's a T-Rex.
Who in turn showed it to the scientific party he was tasked with guiding. The scientists told an incredulous Beaton that the figure depicted on the buckskin scrap was a dinosaur, drawn in flawless anatomical detail.
That was different from the last time we saw it.
The world will never know what Georges Dupuy's opinions might have been on the alleged Ceratosauri of Siberia, the story of Chakina's buckskin drawing, and the controversy that his tale engendered. The journalist died prematurely in 1911, just 3 years after the publication of his most contentious article, bringing the secret of Partridge Creek with him to the grave.
Just before
Paleontologists, cryptozoologists, and literary historians can speculate all they like as to whether his tale has any truth at its core. But until definite answers in some long-forgotten letter or long-lost journal are discovered and brought to public awareness, the monster of Partridge Creek will remain one of the great unsolved mysteries of Canada.
Yes, it will. Alright, we have one more video for tonight.
Oh, shit.
And it's more about dinosaurs seen in real life.
No way.
Here we go. What lurks beneath. Or is it what lurks above? Yeah, that's what lurks beneath. Okay.
In 2011, me and my best friend saw what we believed to be a living, breathing dinosaur. Some sort of predatory raptor of some kind. We were visiting the Grand Canyon National State Park. And if you didn't know, the park is very expansive. Lots of time to travel. Lots of places to explore and to go to. My friend and I spent many days going all over, exploring as much as we could. At one point, it was late afternoon, sometime between 3 and 5 p.m. The sun in the sky was beginning to set in the evening, but it wasn't quite evening yet, which is why I say late afternoon.
Because I wasn't
sure of the fucking time. We were sitting in this kind of canyon-like area. As we were sitting, collecting our thoughts, talking, and discussing the area we wanted to explore next, while upping on some water, my friend pointed out something watching us from the rocks above. I looked, following where his finger was pointing, and sure enough, something stuck out that looked like a large reptile from between the rocks. At first, we thought it was just a misidentification of maybe the environment or surrounding. Maybe, from the distance, it was just a large rock that appeared to be a reptile. We both began making comments saying how weird and out of place it looked, until it moved, and moved very much. Actually, its entire body began to move.
Oh, shit.
And then it moved out in the open, between the rocks.
Yeah, I'd get the fuck out of Dodge.
My friend and I got a pretty good look at it. The coloration is very similar to that of an alligator or crocodile.
Oh, fuck.
A deep green, except it was closer to black than it was a green. So much darker, very heavy set, very muscly, and almost identical to that of a raptor. And I know this might sound cheesy, but the only dinosaur reference I could think that would give you an idea is Jurassic Park.
I called it.
It didn't exactly look like a raptor from that movie or that series, but you kind of get the idea. It looked exactly like some sort of predatory dinosaur, some carnivorous lizard that would have eaten us. This thing wasn't small by any means. It stood on two legs, hunched over, had its arms tucked into its body, and had a very large head. This wasn't a T-Rex, obviously, but it was larger than my friend and I, who were both 6'1" and 6 foot respectively. This thing stared at us.
I will be right
and was
back,
maybe
please.
70 feet away.
Alrighty.
Had very piercing yellow eyes and dark skin, like I said. We never really saw much of its teeth, but there were sharp teeth protruding from each jaw, kind of like a way a crocodile does. It just stared at us, kind of showing somewhat interest.
Why would you not just take a
after
picture
20
of the
to 30
fucking
seconds,
thing?
its attention was immediately shot over to its left, clearly disturbed by something, looked back at us, and then ran off between the rocks in the opposite direction. My friend and I used that moment as the perfect chance to flee, freaking out, not exactly sure what we had just seen. After we spent the rest of the day talking about it and going back to get out of there,
yeah, how do you tell people, like, oh yeah, we saw a raptor out in the woods?
We saw a living, breathing dinosaur, something we thought was extinct, but we have no way to actually come to any other conclusion than that. Nothing else fits the description we saw. If it was a lizard, it was sure the biggest lizard, most dinosaur-like looking lizard we had ever seen in our lives.
Yeah, just a dinosaur-like lizard, you know.
That there's only a few things that can remotely look like a dinosaur. And if it looks like a dinosaur, it probably is. So, in the past year or so, I've been listening to your show.
Oh, that looks like a dinosaur.
And I believe you have a couple episodes here and there that talk about dinosaur sightings. But it doesn't sound like a lot.
But this is my dinosaur sighting.
Well, this is my story.
And it's the realest dinosaur I've ever seen in the history of dinosaurs.
Is it possible that my best friend and I actually saw a real living dinosaur?
Oh, that's
possibly.
Nice of you, Cindy. You're always
there might be a small population of raptors
living
out here in the wilderness of Arizona.
I try. I really do.
I mean, there's plenty of coverage and caves to hide in. But isn't it weird that nobody has really seen one? Or at least reported it?
Well, yeah, because it's a fucking dinosaur.
I don't know. I guess it's possible that a small sect of them could still be alive. I just don't know.
A small sect, like a religious cult?
A small cult of dinosaurs might still be alive.
Yeah, we are the cult of the raptor.
I live and work down in central Costa Rica.
Okay.
If you've never been there, it's beautiful.
Not be like
if you like hot, humid jungles, there's a lot to see.
There's a lot of jungles in Costa Rica,
and it's very similar to ever being to Hawaii, if you've ever been there either.
Okay.
But other than that, I have nothing but positive things to say about my experience.
Except this dinosaur that's there.
Which leads me to my story. I believe that my wife and I saw a living, breathing pterosaur flying in the sky, heading north. We were exploring around in the jungles, not too far off from where my family lives.
So fake.
Admiring all the beauty, sights, and sounds. We weren't in the thicket of the jungle, like exploring with machetes and whatnot. We were close by to civilization, just traversing a little bit, exploring what we could. And before us was an open area that led to ocean, where my wife immediately spotted something large flying in the sky and wondered if there are such things as large tropical birds that traverse the country. Upon showing me, I realized even from the distance, the shape was wrong, and it was far too large to be a bird. I mean, if it was a bird, it was clearly the largest bird I've ever seen in my life.
There's some pretty big fucking birds.
Basically Quetzalcoatl, if you will.
Quetzalcoatl? Oh, come on.
When we looked at it, which we had plenty of time because
you
it was
very plausible until you said Quetzalcoatl
flying across the sky heading north.
It was like one of them.
It looked exactly like you'd see a pterosaur.
That we've all heard about so much on the news.
Of a pterosaur. Yes. That's pretty much it. Long webbed wings, and a small tail right behind it that kind of had a spade shape at the end. A very long duckbill head, with even a crest at the top.
Wow.
It was easily hundreds of feet away, but high enough in the sky that gave away everything about its silhouette and shape. We were amazed by this, and talked to several of the locals afterwards.
Oh, it's okay, guys. Trust me, it's a dinosaur. Trust me.
And they too believe
we saw
there
it.
are pterosaurs that still
pictures?
exist and
no,
inhabit the jungles of Costa Rica
never heard of it.
and other areas of Central America.
Just believe in.
We don't have a blurry enough camera. I didn't want to waste
it. On all things cryptids, or at least I hope. For the sake of my sanity, maybe you can provide some answers with what I saw that day. So I'll give you some backstory.
How about you take a fucking picture and I can tell you exactly how real it is.
And I had a pretty rough upbringing on eastern Texas. In fact, even all the way up to my mid-20s was partying, drugs, alcohol, sex, debauchery, 3-day benders, if not more.
Wow.
Absolutely out of control. Wow. I grew up in a very bad environment, so it just
grew
very
up in
well
inner city
translated
Wakanda.
into my adulthood.
In Texas.
Well,
Wakanda, Texas.
I had some close relatives who do care about my well-being,
so it's Aztec
and just came into a situation where they could take me in, care for me.
I saw this TikTok the other day that was posted on YouTube, and this like Mexican woman was like, "Latinos need a trigger warning for the new Black Panther movie. It's very insulting to us Latinx."
Oh God!
This relative of mine lived around 45 minutes north of Orlando, Florida.
Oh, we're in Florida.
So I took a Greyhound bus there and spent almost a year there, cleaning myself up,
I would believe a dinosaur
changing my life
in
around.
Florida more than I would Texas.
Yes.
I'm a much better person for it.
Like an Everglades dinosaur?
Past,
like, fuck that.
It teaches you a lot of things about yourself. But enough about my background. As I was staying with this relative, they were kind enough to hook me up with a job from a friend of theirs who owned a very small company. I won't give the name or the area, but it was north of where I was living. So I made beautiful morning and afternoon commutes back and forth. One day, I saw something in the wilderness of Florida that will forever make me question what really exists out there. I was driving up there in the morning, heading north, on the Emeralda Island Road, which this entire stretch of road is all marsh conservation area. It's pretty wild, and there's a lot of lakes and water around, like Lake Eustis and Lake Griffin, for example. As I'm driving, I noticed a black figure off
Oh, why's it gotta be black, huh?
Racism? In the brush.
Them
keeping
dinosaurs.
You're gonna let them talk about your
sections
like
of this
that,
marshland that have no trees.
I'm very triggered right
so that
now.
means something big
I'll get
was
over
purposely keeping
You're like 184th South African, right?
That's right.
But enough that I could still see a large shape.
So when is Elon gonna give you that check mark?
And even speed. I began to get kind of concerned.
To a bunch of fucking robots.
What could it have been?
Ain't worried about
I kept looking over.
If he pays for my bills for the next 60 years, he can put whatever experimental robot shit in my brain.
Because this thing seemed
I mean,
to
it'll
be
turn
intelligent,
autistic, but I mean, you know, offers on the table.
Hiding, but also keeping up with my vehicle, almost crawling at an insane speed. I was thinking it might be a giant
that's how you stop AI.
Alligator,
that is right.
Or maybe a huge snake.
You hook him up to just some absolute autistic person,
Once I drove
and boom,
into certain sections
AI
of the road
retarded.
that were covered in heavy
It just wants to play with train sets all day.
I began to truly see the shape and silhouette of what it was.
Thank you for coming to my TED
Talk. You're welcome. Dinosaur-looking thing, or dinosaur man thing. I didn't get the best look in the world at this thing, but I did see the silhouette and kind of shape
on
of
YouTube
it.
For free. For
it did look like it was upright.
I don't know why that is.
But also kind of looked like a large lizard.
Remember that movie We're Back?
Maybe dinosaurs.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That's on YouTube for like
had a
free.
large dinosaur head
oh hell yeah, dude!
Like it's on the channel. Like it says, enjoy the movies. They uploaded the whole fucking thing on YouTube.
Think like a 9 or 10 foot tall linebacker, just massive broad shoulders.
Isn't that what's like
and
John
appearing
Goodman
to have
like
a long alligator-like tail? So maybe I saw an alligator man or something. I mean,
don't slag it off.
I've heard stories.
I watched it all the
but
time.
I never believed it. There's also stories of a skunk ape down here, which is, I guess, Bigfoot.
The rebooted Hellraiser, by the way?
Oh, I have.
I don't know how much
it's not that good.
I liked it.
Refute what I saw this day.
Some of it was pretty dumb.
Even though I didn't get the best look at it.
You don't watch it because it's good. You watch it because it's
and it was keeping
bad.
parallel with my vehicle.
But it's not that bad.
But something
it wasn't
large
as bad
and
as I
man-like,
expected it to be.
an alligator looking like, definitely was following me in my car. For quite a distance, actually. I'm no Everglades or swamp
I've never
biologist,
seen the original Hellraiser.
But I'm trying to think, what is that size? What is shaped
Hellraiser
like a
2 is
big
really good, in my
gorilla
opinion,
or a
too.
man, but yet
Hellraiser
has
2
the
is
head of a
good?
large dinosaur or alligator, and a long tail trailing behind it.
What about Leprechaun
that is
back
also
to
incredibly
the hood?
fast,
to the hood and back to the hood are great.
And also duck,
They're fun.
and keep stealth cover
My
behind
personal
brush.
favorite is Leprechaun.
Very limited brush, might I add.
3.
Nothing comes to mind that I know of.
They need to make a modern day sequel to just Back to the Hood and it's Return to the Hood.
A cryptid of some
that'd
kind.
be fun.
That would be fun.
Some kind that is
they
natural
did make
to the
technically
Florida
a
swamp
reboot
area.
of Leprechaun, trying to make it serious.
I encounter an alligator man.
Yeah, don't
Or
make
was
it
this a
serious. You got to
half
keep
man,
it retarded.
half dinosaur?
That's what makes it fun.
Even entertaining the idea just seems absolutely silly and ridiculous. But I know
what do you
for a
think,
fact
Gene? You think there's
I did see
dinosaurs on this
something,
planet?
and it was far too real
Yes, they're
to
called
just
birds.
hallucinate. I've been
all
off
right,
drugs for a
okay,
long
all right.
time, and have never seen anything.
Look
or
at
any
smart
description
guy
of
Gene over
shapes
here.
Or phantoms
yeah,
or
some
silhouettes.
Archosaurs are still alive. They
Even
just
when I was
adapted
on
differently.
drugs. So
Besides
for this
my
just to
lizard
happen
people,
out of
I
the
mean, I
blue
can't talk about
and make
that
the
fully.
brush
We
and
live
everything else
past
around
the
it move,
extinction event,
and to see a
that's
silhouette
different.
like this.
They live.
There's just
They
no
live
way I was
alright.
hallucinating. And pair that with the stories
we're
of people that
fucking
I've heard
space
talk about the
vampires
alligator
now,
man in
too.
Florida.
We suck your
I don't
chi
know.
energy.
Maybe there really is something around here. I was hoping that by sharing my experience with you, and hopefully
Also,
you
I
could
lied, we
share it
have
with
one
your
more video.
audience, that maybe
'Cause I
people
found
would
one
give me
more.
feedback
Oh, God.
and provide me
boy.
with the truth that there are more sightings and encounters of the same cryptid out there. That's either a human dinosaur creature or truly an